what you say before you say it. This game they all keep on playing. Emotion selective, like letting the murderer go as detective.
It's up.
Fucking
We got
petty,
it.
y'all on 11. Wax about the horrors of war while pulling the trigger and upping the score. After the warnings you fucking ignored. Bad faith actors who try to change the script. Bullying reviewers while watching your fucking ratings slip. Evaporate that money in your bank, Sam. Almost like a shitty doc from Prager in an X ad. If I had $1 every view that was forced, it'd be Pacino fucking paying all his child support. Know what I mean? Oh, too soon. Oh,
that's right, Karen. We're back.
You're so fucking old. It's like a 50-year age gap. Jesus. Godfather was great, but that's a little too much for me personally. I'm just saying. It's just a lot to deal with. Like, I feel like it's kind of weird. When that baby's 20, you'll be 100.
It's true though. It is true. It's really weird. Yeah. I feel like you know, it's like all of these dudes, they're like emotionally stunted. It's like, oh yeah, so you gonna, you know, date women your old age? No, I'm gonna date 20-year-olds. How old are you? Oh well, I'm almost 80. You get that's weird, right? Like they didn't exist when you were 50. Like, you get why that's weird, right? They weren't on this earth. They didn't exist on this earth when you were 50 fucking years old, old man. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? What are you gonna talk about? Like, what generational divide is there gonna be? You know? I remember when we were doing food rations. Do you? Oh, I didn't exist then. Yeah, I didn't exist in that part of human history.
I mean, do you, but dog, the math is kinda, you know. Listen, we have a lot of heavy stuff to talk about today. But that being said, what you're about to...
Okay, so everyone, all the streams are back. Hopefully, for whatever reason, you know, the stream doesn't cut out. I'm gonna try my best to be here for all of you. They're reconnecting. I'm gonna start, you know, covering more world news. Just let me get a second to grab a little bit of some sparkling soda that is not provided or produced by SodaStream, and we will continue.
See, was not my idea. I don't want to hear shit about it in the comments. It was not. It was a joke. Don't. Don't you fucking dare. It's black coffee too. How do you drink your coffee, you fuck? Hey, thank you guys so much for watching Freestyle the News, unless you made fun of my mug. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button so slick that it travels around the whole board and then finally hits the 8 ball into that corner pocket, and then shake my hand. Shake my hand. Shake my hand. There's a lot we got to talk about today. This was yet another exhausting week in a long litany of exhausting weeks. The stuff in the news cycle is very tough to take in, so I'm really happy you guys are here to talk with me. If you're brand new to the channel, hi, I wrap the news every week. But mostly, please, it is okay to take a little bit of time to disengage and work on your mental health. I know it's hard because you feel privileged, or you feel like, well, I'm not doing anything. Taking action also means taking care of yourself so you're able to take action. You have to fill your cup a little bit. This stuff is overwhelming, so I really just hope you and your family are safe and you're taking care of yourselves. So let's jump straight into this breakdown, and our first story is unfortunately still the Israel-Gaza crisis. And I'll just be very, very honest. This week has been, oh dude. So as it stands right now, over 1,400 Israelis have been killed and over 9,400 Palestinians have been killed. The overwhelming amount of casualties have been civilians. Obviously, the people who were the targets of that October 7th attack in Israel And it was reported and confirmed that the IDF bombed a refugee camp in Palestine to try to kill a suspected Hamas person who was hiding there. And I'll repeat it again, I have been incredibly nuanced in this situation. I have not left out the fact that there have been anti-Semitic attacks that have risen. I have not left out the fact that Israeli citizens were killed by Hamas and that attack was terrorism. I have been ideologically consistent, and the ideologically consistent take is that's fucked up to bomb a refugee camp with children to kill 1 or 2 fucking people, and then to go on TV and to tell Wolf Blitzer that's just the horrors of war is fucking despicable. The US has been called both brave and complicit. Meanwhile, Biden is trying to kind of toe both sides while supporting Israel. But as of recently, the US is really trying to push Netanyahu to pause the hostilities to let people out of Gaza, while many other countries are also calling for a ceasefire. And Israel has said they do not want to pause any hostilities until the hostilities.
Yeah, they bombed it multiple times. Multiple times. They've also bombed a hospital that was the biggest cancer treatment hospital. So they bombed a hospital that has kids dying from cancer in it, and there's not a reignition of the debates. You know, all the debates that were like, well, who exactly bombed the hospital? It's tough to say. It could have been a Hamas rocket that misfired. Here's the official story coming out of the IDF that is now being repeated by the President of the United States. And then all these investigations came out saying that story is completely falsifiable. While we don't know who bombed the hospital, we know who bombed all the other hospitals. Yeah, so we know who's bombing all the hospitals. That's Israel. Israel is bombing the hospitals.
Are released, and it's becoming very, very hard to justify the collective punishment of innocent people for what happened. And I'll be very honest with you, the bombing of that camp is not a nuanced situation. Absolute fucking atrocity. And it's still impossible to talk about this because while we have very, very clear violations by Israel on Palestinians, rampant anti-Semitism is rising on campuses. It is
Well, I wanted to say this about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, in all its forms, is disgusting and abhorrent and should be called out rightfully. If people are protesting outside of people's establishments in the West, simply, oh, thank you, Worshipper the Olympians, for the $5.
When is it easy?
I'm guessing that was from something else. I can't remember the reference now, but thank you for the $5 dono. I appreciate it. If people are going outside of Jewish businesses, if they are going outside of Jewish bakeries, if they are going outside of Jewish stores and they are screaming at them for the actions of the Israeli government, what the fuck is wrong with you, right? That's absolutely abhorrent. The same thing happens in tons of fucking conflicts where all of a sudden people who live in Canada or the United States are getting blamed for the actions of a government overseas they have no involvement in. And you are directly treating Jewish people like a monolith, as if all Jewish people equal all Israelis or Israelis equal all Jewish people. That shit is fucked up. And yes, it is happening. There are horrifying acts on establishments that are being done by full-blown fucking racists who are doing that kind of shit. There's also tons and tons of Islamophobia and generalized racism towards people who they think happen to be Muslim or Arab right now. That is all incredibly fucked up and should be denounced and called out. There was a Sikh leader who was beaten. There was a Sikh man, a grandfather in New York, who was recently beaten the fuck up. And all of these are fucking racist ass hate crimes. There's the same shit post 9/11. Everyone keeps talking about how this is exactly like 9/11. This is just like 9/11. While at the same time revealing you learned fucking nothing after 9/11. All of the fucking unfettered racism that just fucking permeated the West is just being reignited. And so many liberals, the fucking libs right now, who were like for months and months, actually I should say for years and years, being like, oh, I didn't actually agree with the war in Iraq. I didn't agree with the weapons of mass destruction. I didn't agree with that. And I think, yes, obviously the civilian casualty is horrifying. Yes, it's certainly deplorable what happened to that situation. Well, at the same time, now reverse, and it's like, yes, apparently that refugee camp was hosting multiple Hamas fighters. There was Hamas headquarters underneath. That ambulance that was bombed and a horse was killed and the streets were just lined with blood and bodies and just like fucking one of the most disgusting and vile situations you've ever seen in your life. The stuff that even horror movies wouldn't like, you know, fathom to create. That shit, yeah, well, that was because there was a Hamas fighter driving the ambulance, even though it was an ambulance that was trying to, again, carry people away from that environment. But sure, that Hamas fighter again. The Al-Shifa hospital, it's got the largest Hamas headquarters in human history. Yet again, once again, Hamas is here. Hamas is there. Hamas is there. So as we bomb refugees camps, schools, civilian outposts, civilian structures, hospitals, children's hospitals, cancer hospitals, as we reduce everything there to fucking nothing, it's because every single one of those targets is justified. It's justified because it was Hamas fighters, and we have to defeat Hamas. These are the same liberals saying this now who wanted to posture that they don't buy into mainstream propaganda. You are buying into mainstream propaganda in real time. All of you are. Every single one of you who is now like, well, that was a justified attack because of Hamas. Well, that was a justified attack. No, you can't starve civilian populations as a justified form of warfare. You cannot do that. You cannot cut a population off of half children, over 1 million children, from food, water, fuel, medical supplies, and then say, the fucking gall to be like, hey, by the way, we have done the humane thing and we've warned everyone to get out. Get out where? Can they go south? Can they go north? Can they go east? Can they go west? Nope. They cannot. They cannot escape the open-air prison that they're inside. If they try to swim away, they'll most likely be shot. If they try to fish, they will blow up the boats. If they try to leave in the Rafah crossing, they will be denied or shot. If they try to leave the other methods, they can't. They can't get out. You can't be like, oh, by the way, leave. To where? Well, you can't. But yeah, we did say leave. We said leave. You know, get out of that hospital, all of you dying people. We're gonna bomb it. We're gonna bomb it. And the fucking disgusting cowardice, like, you know, Mike was right to call it chicken shit behavior of so-called progressives. So-called progressives who are trying to pat themselves on the back. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Justin Trudeau, every one of you now who's like, well, what we're seeing is horrifying. Yeah, it is. Everyone agrees. Demand an immediate ceasefire now to stop this. No, that would be a gift to Hamas, you see. We cannot do that when the enemy is Hamas. Yes. So at this point, we would say that we demand humane corridors to be open. Perhaps a pause, a nice little pause, which has been verified by Senator Anthony Blinken to be a way to buy Israel more time to bomb the fuck out of Gaza, to level Gaza to the ground, to destroy everything. Over fucking 4,000 kids was the count last time. Today's count is nearly 5,000 children killed. Now, every single person who's still saying, well, this is a military procedure, that's what this is. I mean, war is ugly. This is war. Then you're accepting the fact that you can just kill 5,000 children. And we still don't know who the Hamas fighters are that have been just apparently vaporized in these acceptable mass killing events. Like these acceptable mass slaughter events of kids. It's like, well, there was a Hamas general there. Okay, who? What? Can we get the count on Hamas? I can look at the Israeli television and see what they say the official count is. They say it's like over 9,000 terrorists killed or over 9,000 Hamas fighters killed. It's absolutely fucked. And that's not the numbers that Joe Biden believes. Joe Biden doesn't sit there and go, oh, yes, this again is, no, we don't know if these numbers are completely true. They could be Hamas. These are numbers being reported by Hamas, perhaps. So let's downplay the severity of how bad this is, because obviously it looks really fucked up for me to continuously support this administration militarily and continue to just give them a blank check when it comes to how they're going to compose themselves in terms of international order. Oh, they violated all the rules of international order. More white phosphorus is dropping from the skies on children. Children are being burned alive. Every social media platform right now, it doesn't matter what it is, from fucking Facebook to TikTok, you name it, is filled with a non-stop fucking supply of horrifying war crime footage. And everyone is seeing it in real time every single day. Like you can't even try and live your normal life anymore because, yeah, what am I going to do? Well, I guess I'm going to have to avoid any and all social media, because that's how I can really turn my eyes and ears off from this entire thing. Just going to ignore all that. Not going to turn into mainstream news, because even mainstream news is having a hard time fucking backing away from being like, so over 4,000 kids have been killed at this point. And so just go about your day. Just do your shit. Just enjoy the fucking day-to-day of everything. First off, Worshipper of the Olympians, thank you for the other $5 donation. Appreciate that. Gremlo, thank you very much for the rating party of 183. Can everyone go to twitch.tv/Gremlo, give Gremlo a follow back. Thank you. Hope your panel went well. I can't remember if you were hosting it today or recently, but either way, Gremlo was hosting a panel and has been making some amazing posts about this conflict so far, so please go give Gremlo a follow back. Swirly Curly, thank you for resubscribing to Tier 1. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. And Mandy Rebel, thank you for resubscribing as well. And shout out to the YouTube fam. I see all of y'all. Hey, Left of the Box is here as well. Everyone go check out Left of the Box, this YouTube channel. Lots of people watching in all corners of the internet, wherever internet is sold, is available. Yeah, either way. We're going to be continuing to go on a little bit of a rant. If you didn't know, exclamation point, Free Palestine. You'll get links to ceasefiretoday.com, rcommons.ca. If you want to write into your politicians, please do so. If you don't want to go to rallies, if you don't want to attend any of that kind of stuff, take 5 minutes to write into a handful of your politicians, your lawmakers, especially ones who are so-called progressives and are on the fence right now about a ceasefire, and demand an immediate ceasefire. Explain clearly that you know, because they know, all right? They know the difference, but explain that you know, because you're the people who are going to vote for them, that you know the difference between a ceasefire and a humanitarian pause, all right? Depressed Progressive, thank you very much for the 200 biddies. Appreciate you. And if you don't know, I'm making a video right now that I'm going to upload on Mind Explosions to explain to everybody for the difference, but a ceasefire is internationally observed where both parties that are in the middle of a conflict are going to stop attacking one another, they're going to stop bombing one another, and in this case, it's mostly Israel that is doing the majority of the bombing and the killing. That is going to cease. It is internationally observed so that they can begin diplomatic relations with one another. And I know there's going to be libs on the other side that keep telling you, well, that's just not feasible because you can't negotiate. You can't have diplomacy with Hamas. They're the most evil terrorist organization. They're the most evil organization in human history. Have you not seen the memes? Have you not seen Jigsaw on the phone, you know, and showing you that Hamas is evil and how bad that is? Well, if you are still getting that and they're like, well, but we are calling for a humanitarian pause, tell them a humanitarian pause is just that. It's to let a handful of trucks get through, and they were needing over 100 trucks a day. So far, 45 have gotten through total, but they were needing over 100 trucks a day in the best of times when there wasn't clean drinking water, when there was food insecurity for over half the population. That's over 100 trucks a day. There's no trucks right now. The stories coming out of what what is occurring is people are screaming for water in the streets. They are down to eating bread that is provided by a UN stockpile of grain, and they're down to eating apparently like 2 slices, something to that effect. Doctors are drinking IV bags because they've run out of water, and yeah, people have completely run out of water, and like that's horrifying. They're drinking open sewage. None of that is defendable. And anyone who's like, well, this is a military procedure, no, you are doing starvation again of a largely civilian population, the majority of whom are kids. 5,000 kids are already dead. Thousands more are in rubble. That number continues to increase and does so with fucking, you know, liberal endorsement. Like, it's absolutely disgusting. Sarah Jama was one of the first politicians to speak out about this and has been censured and then removed from the NDP caucus as a result. As tens of thousands of people gathered outside the U.S. consulate in Toronto on Saturday, November 4th, waving Palestinian flags and chanting ceasefire, only one politician was given the chance to speak to the crowd. Thousands in the crowd chanted Sarah Jama's name and the Ontario Member of Parliament as she took the stage. We are here to demand that people like Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden use their powers to push for a ceasefire, and we demand that all leaders around the world push for a ceasefire and end their complicity in Israel's crimes against humanity. The Palestinian fight for freedom will always remain until Palestine is free, and because we know this, we are gathered here in the thousands. And yet, we got fucking this.
We should call Benjamin
The moment
Netanyahu
finally came where
Oh, thank you, Worshipper of the Olympians, for the other $5 dono.
A full-on ceasefire, which would require an agreement on both sides to halt the fighting. Do you support a ceasefire? And if not, why not?
Well, I don't know how you can have a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, with an organization like Hamas, which is dedicated to turmoil and chaos and destroying the state of Israel. And I think what the Arab countries in the region understand, that Hamas has got to go.
I can't believe that's coming out of the mouth of Bernie Sanders. Yeah, it is. It's revolting. It's reviling. He knows better. He's got hundreds of staffers who have not only written into him, but have actually made videos saying, hey, by the way, Bernie Sanders, I worked on your campaign. Hey, by the way, Bernie Sanders, I worked for your office. Hey, by the way, Bernie Sanders, I canvassed for you. Hey, by the way, Bernie Sanders, I did phone banking for you. Please, for the love of God, call for an immediate ceasefire so that this mass slaughter of children and this destruction of civilian territory can stop. We know that you know that it's the right thing. Please be on the right side of history. Please always do what needs to be done, and here we go. And he is regurgitating fucking state defense talking lines, just word for word. And like, at a time, by the way, when the entire world is waking up collectively. Like, it's obviously absolutely horrifying every single day when you turn on the news to see, like, just the, again, mass slaughter of children happening on fucking, you know, taxpayer-funded military donations from both the United States, Canada, NATO allies, European allies, all these countries that are fucking funding Israel's current bombing campaign that is mass killing children. The world and the way you speak about this has changed. I have been doing coverage of this for fucking years and years and years and years. And I remember one year I raised money for a Palestinian charity that was for Palestinian children. It was a Canadian charity organization, but they were to support Palestinian children. And I was accused of funding Hamas. You know, that's what it used to be like. People not only couldn't speak up about any of this, but goddamn, if you even tried to start being factual, just start talking about how these are actually the conditions directly in which two different sets of people are being treated completely differently based entirely on their ethnicity. When it comes to Gaza, we're talking about one of the largest humanitarian crises in our lifetimes, where again the living conditions are absolutely atrocious. They live in an open air prison of which, you know, all of the flow of food, water, electricity, fuel, medical resources are controlled entirely by the state of Israel, and what does get in there is provided largely by humanitarian aid that is allowed to travel through. But even in those conditions, with the humanitarian aid flowing, it was absolutely fucking horrifying for the kids who lived there, many of whom did not have food security, many of whom did not have clean drinking water. They had rolling blackouts. At the best of times, they had like 4 hours of power a day, and that's what is required to be able to give hospitals the ability to power things like incubators or, you know, perform any kind of life-saving surgeries and all that kind of stuff. And now they're cut off from all of that while they get fucking bombed. There's been more bombs dropped on them in total for explosive fucking, you know, quantification than there was in the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Like that's what's going on here. And like, to still be there and to still be like, oh, well, I don't think you can have a ceasefire with a group like Hamas. Oh, so this just goes on forever then, until Gaza isn't left, until nothing's left. What I see unfolding in Gaza and beyond is genocide. There's more truth in these 52 seconds from Craig Mokiber, who just resigned from the UN Human Rights Office.
Usually the most difficult part of proving genocide is intent, because there has to be an intention, to destroy in whole or in part a particular group. In this case, the intent by Israeli leaders has been so explicitly stated and publicly stated by the Prime Minister, by the President, by senior cabinet ministers, by military leaders, that is an easy case to make. It's on the public record. If we can allege that we see war crimes, crimes against humanity, as we have often done, there's no reason to exclude, where we see very strong evidence, the possibility of genocide being committed. And I think you're going to be hearing that term more and more in connection.
By the way, while this was all happening over the weekend, Israel ministers suspended after calling nuking Gaza an option. Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu's statements are not based in reality. Israel's heritage minister was suspended indefinitely after he said in an interview that dropping a nuclear bomb on the Gaza Strip was, quote, one of the possibilities the government announced on Sunday. His statements are not based in reality, said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel and its military are operating in accordance with the highest standards of international law to avoid harming innocents. You might want to tell that to the IDF, because they don't seem to be listening. By the way, if you get libs in your replies saying things like, this is actually an acceptable military procedure, you lefties using the term genocide, just call everything you don't like Hitler, or that is a genocide, etc. What is this, you know, blah, blah, blah. You might want to point them towards 800 legal scholars who say that Israel may now be perpetrating crimes of genocide in Gaza, to find any links to the open letter that over 800 legal scholars, many of whom specialize specifically in genocide. Yeah, so again, don't take it from me, take it from the people whose entire life work was dedicated to studying this very fucking field. So they are saying that, yeah, this is really, really fucking bad. Here is all the, like, the list. If you want to go on to it, here you are. And I say that specifically because you are getting liberals who are saying that kind of stuff, and it's honestly revolting to continue to just deny everything that you see before you. People have eyes. Shocking scale of violence. Israel kills 10,000 Palestinians in 1 month. In 1 month. 1 fucking month. Palestinians killed by Israeli forces between October 7th and November 6th, 2023. That's in 4 weeks. 10,174, the majority of whom are children and women. Palestinians killed by Israeli forces between August 2000 and October 6th, 2023. 10,559. All right, so Martin Griffith, one of the signers of the call for the humanitarian ceasefire. Cindy McCain, who Biden nominated as U.S. ambassador to the World Food Program, now its executive director. We need another person, Martin Griffiths, the UN relief chief. We need immediate humanitarian ceasefire. It's been 30 days. Enough is enough. This must stop now. And by the way, if you support wanting to get the hostages back, and I'm sure a lot of people do, then you might want to tell Israel to stop bombing the very locations where hostages are being held to the ground. This is not a procedure that is typically done when you're trying to secure the return of hostages. There was an offer that was made for an exchange of hostages, as in all of the Palestinians that were arrested without cause who are being detained currently, an exchange of them for all the Israeli hostages. That was rejected at this point. Happening now, the same U.S. military ships taking weapons to Israel that was in Oakland is now being protested by hundreds at Seattle-Tacoma Port.
There is a worker on this ship who has been moved since Oakland and your actions here today, and they are saying no. They plan to walk off this ship. And let me tell you, they are a very important worker on this ship. This thing cannot go anywhere without them. We are winning today. We are changing hearts and minds. The workers of the world will never allow genocide to happen on their watch. And with working people around all over the place, we will see an end to this genocide. We will see an end to occupation and war. And with worker solidarity, we will see a free Palestine.
So these are people blocking one of the ports in Seattle, specifically blocking the shipment of arms and weaponry to Israel. There's been a lot of direct action similar to this that is taking place, as well as, again, protests around the globe. More journalists have been murdered. Israel has now killed 47 journalists in Gaza in 29 days. Israel just murdered another Palestinian journalist, Mohammed al-Jaja, who they massacred along with his entire family, his wife, and his 2 daughters. 47 journalists. This was posted while the number, I believe, was lower, and this is by the Committee to Protect Journalists, incredible organization. The level of danger for journalists operating in Gaza right now is absolutely unprecedented. This is the most dangerous conflict for journalists that the CPJ has ever documented, and we've been documenting attacks on journalists for 30 years. Every single organization that tracks all these kind of things, from war crimes to the slaughtering and torture of children to, again, the murder of journalists, all of these organizations who spend their careers tracking this kind of stuff in global conflicts are all screaming that this is the worst shit they've ever seen.
Them saying, quote, "We cannot take it anymore. We're exhausted. We are all victims here, martyrs, and we are leaving one after the other." Well, for more on the situation for journalists on the ground, I've been speaking to the president of the Committee to Protect Journalists, Jody Ginsburg. To begin with, sketch out the level of danger for journalists operating in Gaza right now.
Uvel 546 is asking if we condemn Hamas. Well, do you also condemn in the same breath the occupation of another group of people and the treating them under an apartheid state and the torture of children and the starving of children? Because if that's the case, then yes, absolutely. We condemn Hamas. We condemn the actions of Hamas on October 7th, as well as that is not a justification for the mass slaughter of children. And that's what needs to stop. Like, if you are focusing and concentrating completely on the actions of, again, a militant group in a region that is currently undergoing vast amounts of civilian torture, Well, I don't know. If you want to create less extremists, perhaps not keep trying the same strategies that have got nowhere. Don't keep doing the same shit over and over and over again.
The level of danger for journalists operating in Gaza right now is absolute.
Don't bomb hospitals. Don't drop white phosphorus. Don't bomb convoy, what is it, vans that are carrying civilian transport to be able to take them to safety. Don't bomb schools. Don't bomb refugee camps. Don't bomb refugee camps again. Don't bomb refugee camps again. Don't bomb ambulances. And then just do mass slaughter of civilians in the streets. Because everyone can see this shit. Everyone is watching this. Like, is this not terrorism? Is this not terrorism being enacted on a civilian population that is currently being starved? Again, it's one of those things where every single time someone is like, and what about the bad things that Hamas has done? It's like, so wait, sorry, is that your justification for this? Does that make this acceptable? Does that make what you were witnessing before your very eyes, like your brain just shuts off and you're like, oh well, yeah, that is really fucked up that I keep just seeing what human corpses look like all the time, especially child corpses as they suffer from horrifying burns. They don't even have fucking the medication they could take, like pain relievers, to be able to not feel that extreme torture. But yeah, this is acceptable because we need to again eliminate Hamas.
Unprecedented. This is the most dangerous conflict for journalists that the Committee to Protect Journalists has ever documented, and we've been recording and documenting attacks against journalists for more than 30 years. 36 journalists have been killed in the past 4 weeks. And to put that in kind of context for you, last year we documented 68 journalists and media workers killed worldwide over the space of 12 months, and 36 have died just in 4 weeks, just in Israel and Gaza.
Jody, why do you think so many of them have been killed?
Well, no international...
Again, yeah, it's like it just doesn't compute with some human beings because they obviously they value life differently depending on where you're from or who you are. If you were to write out the numbers and you were like, here's what Hamas has done in the past month. Hamas has killed over 10,000 fucking civilians, like 4,000 to 5,000 of whom are children. Hamas has bombed schools. Hamas has bombed ambulances. Hamas has bombed hospitals. Hamas has bombed so many clinics. Like, Hamas has leveled and destroyed 42% of all homes or houses. Hamas has killed over 38 journalists. Hamas has killed over 200 doctors. Hamas has killed tons and tons of medical workers, school workers. Hamas has again slaughtered thousands of children. There are thousands of children that are currently lying under rubble, and this was all after Hamas cut all of these people off from food, fuel, water, electricity, leaving them in times not only in the dark perpetually, but without the internet, because they bombed internet infrastructure as well. They are bombing civilian targets, they are killing civilian targets, they are crushing civilian targets. Civilian targets are now, oh, Hamas just dropped white phosphorus all over these civilian targets. Like, again, all of this shit, if you saw it on paper, like that every single person right now is like, Hamas is bad, right? It's like, yes, yeah, there's certainly one group that is committing very, very massive atrocities consistently and in very high numbers.
Crews are able to get into Gaza. The only people able to report from Gaza are Gazan journalists, and there is literally nowhere in Gaza currently that is safe. We've seen hospitals bombed, we've seen schools under attack, and journalists are civilians, so they can face the same risks that any civilian is currently risking, and they're also trying to document and cover what's going on. So they tend to be at places like hospitals where the injured are being brought and so on, or they tend to be filming convoys. And there's nowhere for them to be safe, like any civilian in Gaza at the moment.
We've also seen a strike on a building used by AFP in Gaza. With strikes on infrastructure, how difficult does that also make continuing to do journalism, to get information out?
It makes it extremely difficult. We've seen buildings that house media.
Yeah, if you kill the press, you do kill the proof.
Have come under attack. We've seen
The official numbers are like being denied by the president of the United States of America, doing straight up fucking ethnic cleansing, apologia, trying to downplay and discount the numbers. And when the numbers are then verified by international organizations such as Euromed Life Monitor, and they post the numbers, that then again is just like forgotten, completely forgotten. And then, or just like, at what point do you not realize that this is a mass slaughter? Like, that's what this is. This is a mass slaughter event. Like, if 4,000 children have been killed, and then it's like, well, actually, the number's a bit old. It's 5,000 children. Oh, sorry, 5,000 children have been killed, crushed, starved, dehydrated, burnt beyond recognition. Like, and the thing is, I keep hearing these conspiracy theories. People keep being like, this is a Chinese-driven AI. That's what's causing this. What? So you're blaming TikTok for that? Your X is controlled by Elon Musk. Facebook is controlled by Mark Zuckerberg. These corporations are like, every social media like site right now is flooded because there's an unbelievable amount of footage of carnage. It's like the very technology you're looking to police and control now and try to censor. Yeah, that same technology is making everyone capable to see a mass fucking event like this in real time. That's why people in the millions, you know, are protesting all the time to demand a ceasefire for this.
Clean up your room.
Obviously,
Prong 999, thank you.
communications blackouts, as we saw last week, where it was impossible for any communication to get out. And that makes it extremely difficult. On top of that, of course, you have fuel shortages, food shortages, water shortages. That makes it, again, very difficult for journalists to operate. They need to get about, and it makes that extremely hard.
Also, it's one of those things where it's like, over 800 legal scholars, including many experts, you know, doctors in their fields who cover genocide and its actions, have said that there seems to be genocidal intent here. What that Israeli think tank put out, you know, information about how to forcibly remove Palestinians from Gaza in order to displace them. There are multiple members, including Benjamin Netanyahu himself, who have shown photos of Gaza, you know, no longer existing, saying that, like, you know, the next step is to move Palestinians out of Gaza, all this kind of stuff. You're getting just non-stop. Oh, and not to mention one of the deputy ministers who just said that nuking Gaza is an option. But don't worry, he's been removed from his cabinet. He was speaking out of line, apparently. But like, you're getting this non-stop flow of this kind of stuff, in addition to, again, the mass starvation and you know, bombing of a civilian population. You're getting all of that. You're seeing all of this on a regular basis. But they keep trying to gaslight, like, collectively through their propaganda, everybody, and it gets regurgitated by the fucking president of the United States. It gets fucking reiterated by every, you know, mainstream media host. Oh no, but you can even see them cracking. You even see, like, the Wolf Blitzers of the world who are like, so Hamas was in the ambulance, or why would you bomb that location? Why did you have to bomb? You knew that there were lots of civilians at the refugee camp, but you bombed it anyway. Yes, but we successfully eliminated one Hamas general in that bombing. So there's a trade, I guess, that's acceptable. It's like, you know, a couple hundred civilians, many of whom are children. That's the acceptable trade. Okay, let's keep pushing this. Keep saying the same things, because apparently if you reiterate this, it absolves everybody. Speaking of, oh, this is taking place today. Jewish activists have taken the Statue of Liberty for a ceasefire now. Multiple helicopters monitoring the scene. We're currently monitoring the scene to make sure if Jewish Voices for Peace are not doing anything that is considered anti-Semitic in nature. Over 10,000 Palestinians killed by Israeli strikes on Gaza Health Ministry. Over 10,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli military action in Gaza since October 7th, according to new figures released by the Hamas-controlled health authority in the territory. Thanks to The Guardian. The total deaths now stands at 10,022, including 4,104 children. The number of casualties in Gaza have not been independently verified. Earlier, leaders of the UN major humanitarian agencies, as well as international charities, called for immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, saying the situation is horrific and unacceptable in a rare joint statement. Not that it's mattering because it continues to go unimpeded. Well, Justin Trudeau said ceasefire. Almost. He fucked up. He fucked up. He realized that, you know, deep in his heart, I guess, seeing all the horrifying stuff in the world, you know, he was in a moment where he's like, I guess what everyone is asking for collectively in all these protests and all the people of Canada right now are asking for a ceasefire. So we demand a cease and desist, you know.
We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can.
Ooh, good, nice. Yeah, get back. We gotta remember who our powerful allies are in all things. By the way, Justin, in all things.
Flow.
Yeah, that's definitely a whoopsie.
We need to see ceasing of the.
For a guy.
we need the ceasing. We need to see ceasing of but a humanitarian aid and all. What were the talking points I'm allowed to say? A humanitarian corridor. Is it like a printout? I'm so curious. And it's like, hey, if you want to appear progressive on this issue, here's what you're allowed to say. Ask for a humanitarian pause. That one's great because that'll give us the ability to make it look like we did something good at that time. You know, history won't remember us as the whole ethnic cleansing team. And then you can go back to the second part where, yes, and afterwards the bombing should resume to eliminate Hamas, that kind of thing. And that's like that one's for the progressives, right?
That typically comes off as very rehearsed. This was an incredible slip up. So during an appearance at a leaders summit in Washington, D.C., Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked about Israel and Gaza. And he confirmed that he definitely supports a humanitarian pause. Check out this clip.
We need to see a cease. We need to see a
yeah, it's almost as if people just screaming it all the time from the top of their lungs are getting into his brain. Keep screaming it, everybody.
Humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing. We need to see civilians protected. We need to see a humanitarian pause.
I mean, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. He was so close to calling for a ceasefire accidentally. This is just one of the most incredible slip-ups I've ever witnessed from really any world leader. Because we're in a moment right now where we have thousands of people, as I'll get to, from these mass marches all over the world, calling for a ceasefire. It is clearly the right thing to do, yet you have the world leaders, the allies of Israel, be it Canada, be it the US, be it the UK, continue to support the indiscriminate bombing of civilians in Gaza. Trudeau has to know what the right thing to do is, but he doesn't prioritize what the right thing to do is.
Yeah,
he prioritizes his allies and what they want to do. Once again, Canada, not a leader on any issue. Incredibly embarrassing. But you have here recently, this came out from the NDP, one of the other parties. So in case you're not Canadian, right now the NDP is the third largest party in Canada. They recently came out to demand that Trudeau calls for a ceasefire, and they did this, as they say in their letter here, after more than 100,000 Canadians wrote to them calling for a ceasefire, showing you that this sort of pressure does work. Now, yes, you need a lot more.
Yeah, but the problem is that, like, so you know what's really sad about this? And I agree. And by the way, exclamation point Free Palestine to get links on how to contact your lawmakers. These were, again, most likely center-left, soc dems, progressives, leftists, and then all the way on to communists, anarchists, all that kind of stuff. People who like, well, I don't really have a political party in Canada, but there is the soc dem party, so I'm going to, focus my energy on them because they're the only ones who can actually, provide a cabinet based with enough MPs to oppose items that maybe the Liberals or the Conservatives do. So it's my closest to having a political home. So yes, that's my party. And it took them 2 fucking weeks of hundreds of thousands of people calling them and writing to them and being like, please fucking demand a ceasefire, for them to suddenly get on the right side of history on this issue. that sucks. That sucks, but it does work clearly when your entire voter base is like, fuck off. Like, this is horrifying. Put an end to it. The problem with, I guess, a lot of liberals is they seem to have bought the Kool-Aid. They're all drinking the same fucking, rationale to justify horrifying war crimes. That like they will posture all day about like, I didn't believe in the weapons of mass destruction, and our whole like we have to destroy terrorism, so we should invade a civilian population, especially one that's like, not currently, trying to attack the United States in Iraq. I mean, that seems a little much. And then there's a huge civilian toll that comes from these kind of things when there's just such a disproportionate amount of power between the two, what quote unquote warring factions, that kind of stuff. Yeah, if more people then are going to start to wake up or write in or start complaining about this, because there are liberals and there are so far there's even conservatives who have asked for a ceasefire. There's that MP in the UK who got fucking rightly reprimanded right away for having the audacity to call for a ceasefire. Dick Durbin, the first senator, asking for a ceasefire. Not exactly what someone would say is a very far leftist by any stretch of the imagination, but at least there's one senator who's calling for a ceasefire. But yes, it is true. Like, going to protests and doing direct action, all of that obviously helps in some way. I agreed with some people online who were like, by the way, I know everyone feels hopeless because you're all just sitting back knowing that your tax dollars are going towards the funding of mass slaughter of children, and that's fucking a wake-up moment for a lot of people. It's also fucking obviously some people it's suddenly waking them up to an entire reality of how the world operates and how deeply intertwined both the American military industrial complex and the American imperial objectives are so directly connected with the state of Israel and what the state of Israel is currently doing against Palestinians, and why Joe Biden will never back away. It's also having a devastating effect on potential election campaigns. So every single person who is going to be screaming about Donald Trump, all the liberals who are going to be screaming about Donald Trump and the advance of fascism in the United States, Joe Biden right now is your enemy. Joe Biden is the person who is acting with complete and utter fucking impunity and doing actions which are in fucking direct conflict with not only a lot of his staff, a lot of fucking other politicians, but a large percentage, a majority percentage of Americans. And it is destroying his chances in swing states. Because surprise, surprise, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, especially ones in key swing states like Michigan, where again they make up about 255,000 registered voters, where he only won the state by 155,000 votes, they are devastatingly dropping in their support of Biden, as are voters of color, as are younger voters. Younger voters are absolutely disgusted by Joe Biden and his actions right now. As are, Canada was already lost cause. Trudeau has been fucking long done before this, and this is definitely not helping him. But yeah, once again, that's the person you should be mad at. I know there's going to be all this fury and vote shaming and like, oh, you can't even do the responsible thing. You allowed Trump to get elected. No, it's once again, it's not like if something bad were to happen, it's not that. It's people being disgusted at Joe Biden. So Joe Biden is the person that you should be angry at. I know you can't do that. Can't be mad at Daddy Biden. Can't be mad at Daddy Lib at any point. Your loyalty has to be to the party and to anyone who's got the banner of neoliberalism on their lapel and all that kind of stuff. But holy fuck, people outwardly fucking horrified and disgusted by this. Not only like, I don't want to canvass for him, I don't want to phone bank for him, I don't want to knock on doors. People being like, we have to get rid of fucking Biden. There's still time. There's still a primary now. There's still an opportunity for Biden to drop out of the race because the guy is fucking DOA in terms of all these swing state polls that are coming out. And then using the like, well, Trump's shitty too. Yeah, Trump's fucking shitty. Guess what? I don't support Trump. Your argument there should be with people who are planning on voting for Trump. That's the people you should be getting mad at for that. That's the people who you should be debating. That's the people you should be going after. Well, you got to understand, Trump is fucking, he's a horrible person. Go talk to Trump voters. I would never fucking support that fucking fascist piece of shit. Fuck Donald Trump. Absolutely fuck him. But hey, your anger right now should be at Joe Biden because he's the one losing the voters. He's the one who's disgusting people in real time. And Cenk is not the answer. Maybe it was Cenk all along. Cenk has come to save the world at a time when we needed him the most.
Pressure when it comes to moving actual governments, because again, we're talking about just a party here. But this is why it is so important to see tens of thousands of people in the streets all over the world.
Lance, you should talk to Vosh about this. My understanding is that Vosh is still doing the vote for Biden no matter what. style content. I'm not here to tell you in any way, shape, or form that Donald Trump would be better. Donald Trump would be doing just as many horrifying things. You know the biggest difference between Trump and Biden right now? He wouldn't be doing the additional, like, and we also deeply want to help out, you know, the Palestinians in Gaza kind of posturing that the liberals are doing, and he would be crass and racist and Islamophobic because he's crass and racist and Islamophobic. He'd be doing all the same shit, maybe even advocating for more money, right? But like that alone can't be a justification for, hey, Trump would be worse, don't you know? And it's like, so we can just never hold Joe Biden accountable then. We can never just point out, and this is not at Vosh, by the way, this is just at liberals who are constantly pushing this narrative. I was like, people are disgusted with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the one directly, he's the president. He's the one stating that he supports this. He's the one fucking doing, you know, genocide apologia when he's trying to downplay the severity of what is taking place over there and the numbers and being like, well, I don't know if we can believe the official numbers. Well, what about the numbers that are now being reflected by numerous organizations such as the UN, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and Euromed Monitor now that are saying that these are independently verifiable numbers and stuff like that. That none of that matters. None of that matters. We have to defeat Hamas. We have to destroy terrorism. We have to get rid of it. He's fucking regurgitating the same talking points that George Bush was doing back in the day in terms of like terrorism is the ultimate enemy. We have to destroy an enemy of ideology, and that's why all of this mass slaughter of children. It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate. We're not for it, but you do have to understand that this is being done with the goal of destroying Hamas.
Marching for a ceasefire. So as City News writes here, demonstrations in support of Gaza take place in at least 24 Canadian cities. So
see, and like, and then there are actual anti-Semites or trolls who would drop in the fucking chat. Fuck you, you disgusting piece of shit. The Jews are controlling the media? No, the Jews are not controlling the media. You know who's fucking controlling the media? Billionaires. Fucking billionaires. You have bought into a fucking anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. You are a flat earther of racism. That's what the fuck you are. If you're gonna fucking believe that kind of shit, then why don't you look into who actually owns a lot of these companies, you know? Why don't you actually look into the owners of these companies and who they're beholden to? And what is there a correlation? What are they? They're fucking billionaires. Billionaires own mass media. Okay? Doesn't matter if it's right-wing mass media, liberal mass media, it's fucking billionaires. Billionaires control the world. Yes, they do. The one thing they all have in common is they happen to be extremely rich and wealthy. That's it.
Thousands there. This is in Toronto. Let me play this clip. So thousands more there. This is at night.
Bosch specifically said that was a bad way to go right now. It is. It is. It's always a bad way to go. Let's just be completely honest. I will tell you what I will do. I'll be like, yes, this is how I'm going to vote in the upcoming Canadian election. This is who I'm supporting. This is the person I'm voting for. This is who I'm going to canvass for. I've got an Indigenous MP that I want to get elected, so I'm going to be working for this person. This is who I'm voting for. Vote shaming doesn't win you votes, like in terms of like the overall picture. There's some people who may be like, okay, well, a lot of people were mean to me online, so I decided I had to do the responsible thing and vote for the guy I don't like, but I'm going to do it now, right? But like the vote shaming aspect of it isn't going to ultimately drive votes the way, say, like being on the right side of history will, you know? A lot more people, especially Arab American and Muslim Americans, may be a lot more keen to support Joe Biden in the upcoming election if he shows that he actually legitimately cared about Palestinian people. But he doesn't. He's completely fine with the mass slaughter of Palestinian people. In fact, he's fine with funding it. And he's not like openly brazen about that. And when it's like, yeah, shit that's happening right now is fucking war crimes of the highest order, there's absolutely no pushback in terms of Joe Biden being like, oh, well, yes, we'll have to call out some war crimes. We'll have to have some investigations, anything like that. That's the kind of shit that is turning people off and turning off the youth vote, by the way. Goodbye, youth vote. You're going to get all these fucking young kids to energetically make TikToks and stuff like that or do fucking phone banking for the dude who's just directly partnering with an ethnic cleansing. How the fuck is anyone supposed to support this? That's the reason right now you're getting that like Kamala Harris video where it's like, we are now announcing a plan to make sure that we target any kind of form of Islamophobia or anti-Semitism in this country. We want to make sure that every single person understands. It's like, you're not losing the vote because they didn't think that you can performatively state what racism is and why racism is bad. That's not why. And just there is no saving that. There's no like progressive answer to that where it's going to be like, well, racism's bad. We're the party that says racism's bad. The other guy, that Donald Trump, he doesn't say that. He'll just say racist shit because he's a racist and he'll say it out loud. So, you know, we don't do that. We don't, you know, we're all about fucking saying racism bad over here. And it's like, okay, but you're also for funding this ethnic cleansing that's going on before our very eyes. We're all witnessing an ethnic cleansing taking place, and all of us are disgusted, I say rightfully so, knowing that our tax dollars, myself included, have been funding it, have been arming it, and I've been disgusted about this for a very long time. I'm not out here saying I'm never going to pay taxes again until this stops. I'm saying fucking stop using my money, stop using my fucking dollars to buy bombs to go bomb people, and that's what's going to lose you votes. That's what's turning people off the party. That's what's people. That's why his polling is so fucking horrendous right now.
In Toronto, after 5 hours, tens of thousands.
COVID sunk Trump's chance of re-election. War crimes are not going to sink Biden's chance of re-election. And again, get mad at fucking Joe Biden. You want to be mad at someone? It's not the Bernie bro online who's now telling you, by the way, that they're disgusted with Bernie Sanders too. Because like a lot of the individuals who are supporting these people, they're supporting them because they think that their actual values are reflected by the politician, right? And they want to see those values reflected by them. It's like, it's less team sports. It's less like, well, Bernie Sanders is my guy, so no matter what he decides to do, I'm always going to support him. No, I never thought I'd say this, but fuck Bernie Sanders right now. You are absolutely like regurgitating a lot of fucking state-run propaganda to get people to justify a mass ethnic cleansing campaign that is taking place right now. And to sit back and be like, well, we can't call for ceasefire with an enemy like Hamas, you know? And it's like, no one's buying this shit anymore. Like, everyone can see it. No one is buying the same lies, the same, like, not even the people who support you, even the Wolf Blitzers can see through this now. You can't just stand there and be like, you knew there was a lot of people that were going to die, but you did it anyway. A lot of people are buying it now. Yes, I would say still a majority of, like, you know, Western liberals are still buying the propaganda lines, despite the fact that they're like, this, yikes, whoo, that's bad. Well, I really hope those numbers are completely fabricated. It would be really nice and cozy and warm for me to find out that this wasn't as high, the number of children that have died. You know, this is more than a 9/11, just worth of kids alone. Yeah, that one really is going to haunt my dreams for the rest of my days. I really hope the president is right when he says the numbers may or may not have been exaggerated. Guess we'll find out. But it's like, well, they bombed another hospital, they bombed another refugee camp, they bombed that same refugee camp again, they bombed a children's school, they bombed a cancer ward, they bombed the biggest fucking cancer hospital. Oh, they just took out a whole university. They took out the university. They took out the university that was there. So there's no university anymore. The university's fucking gone. Yeah, it's a graveyard. They're all graveyards. All the things I just mentioned, they're all graveyards now. You can keep on fucking telling yourself the same lines though, but yes, it's in order to get rid of Hamas. This is all to get rid of Hamas. And yet that's why you're seeing such a change right now in the way people speak about this or talk about this, because none of the war crime aspect and the horrifying treatment of Palestinians in Gaza is new. If you have been watching Democracy Now! For even the past couple years, or not the last decade, you've been seeing nonstop coverage of fucking just the mistreatment of another ethnicity, another ethnic group on a regular fucking repeated basis, and just the horrifying atrocities that take place all the fucking time. Like, again, in the best of times, shit is fucking horrifying. So it's one of those things where a lot of other people are asking questions. A lot of other people are suddenly being like, whoa, can we actually talk about this? Like, I've got a segment coming up after this on MSNBC by Mehdi Hassan that is aired on mainstream MSNBC, you know, peacock liberal output, that actually calls into question, is what's taking place right now a genocide? He would not have been allowed to do that even 5 fucking years ago. You would not have been allowed to make that segment, to release this kind of segment, right? A lot of this has to do with, a large part, people look towards what's happening and it just doesn't add up. It doesn't compute. It's really hard to keep doing this narrative in your head where you're like, okay, so I've been told that based on the existence of Jewish people in that region of the world that can be traced back for a very long time, and then the fact that it was named Palestine by a Roman emperor, and the Jewish people were persecuted and they were sent out of that region of the world and they were sent to other parts of the world where they continued to be persecuted, because I've learned that part of history and everything. And then apparently there were Palestinians known to have lived in an area of the world such as that for a very long time after it was first conquered and owned by the Ottoman Empire. Then it was transferred to the British, and then after which there was post World War II the creation of the State of Israel. So it is a very recent, in recent times, stated. There are a lot of people who are older, who are alive today, that are older than the State of Israel. But because of all that, Palestine wasn't officially recognized until 1988. Which means it doesn't even count as a country until then, right? Okay, so let's set our timelines up. We've got our timeline set up. And then there's somehow the formation of this extremist group. We don't know how it came to power, but Hamas comes to power. They elected Hamas to power, did they? Okay, so they elected Hamas to power. And that was a long time ago, and there hasn't been an election since then, and half the population wouldn't have been alive to vote for Hamas that lives there. We're talking 1 million kids. Sure. But there's still Hamas, and Hamas did commit a horrifying atrocity on October 7th. So this is simply a war on Hamas. Yes, not a war on humanity. This is a war on Hamas. Okay, all right, I got it. I'm set. I got my histories.
And ceasefire is really the bare minimum. And you can't even get world leadership to agree to that, because of course the larger issue at play here is the ongoing occupation, the apartheid, but it all begins with the ceasefire. All these people are calling for, these tens of thousands, I would say millions worldwide, maybe not in the streets, but millions worldwide, are calling for the Israeli government to stop indiscriminately bombing.
For the Olympians, thank you for the $5
Didn't the
dono.
Jews commit genocide
This is
on
not hard.
Canaanites?
From Common Dreams, Let Gaza Live, a month into Israeli war, massive U.S. protests demand a ceasefire. So this is Washington, D.C. Play a bit of this. And of course, we're on Elon Musk's Twitter. So the first reply is from some dipshit calling it an anti-Israel rally. How is calling to save children's lives that are being indiscriminately bombed, how is that an anti-Israel rally? It's an anti-Israeli government rally. So I guess we can agree there. But this idea that, oh, these people calling to save children, they're anti-Israel just generally, is disgusting. From Common Dreams here, demonstrators in D.C. carried signs with messages like "Stop U.S.-funded genocide," "Ceasefire now," and "Let Gaza live." Sharing a photo from the D.C. gathering on social media, Representative Ayanna Pressley said, quote, "Solidarity with the hundreds of thousands of people nationwide who marched in support of a ceasefire now. Our pro-peace, pro-humanity movement is strong and it is growing daily." Israel has faced global criticism for cutting off the people of Gaza from food, water, fuel, and medicine, as well as bombing homes, schools, medical facilities, religious buildings, and a refugee camp.
I think the ancient genocide of Canaanites is only a myth. Oh, is that what is that what it said? I've turned down like the voices, sorry, not the voices, the notification sounds for me because of the fact that like they were getting distracting when people were like mass donating during the news things. But yeah, no, don't donate things that have anything to do with religion, and then please don't lump all Jewish people in with the actions of the state of Israel. When we're speaking about two, we are differentiating between the two for a very, very important reason.
Citizens of Israel have joined in worldwide demands for the International Criminal Court action on escalating Israeli war crimes and genocide. Pro-Palestinian protests were also held around the world on Saturday, including in Berlin, Germany, Dhaka, Bangladesh, London, England, Paris, France, Milan, Italy, Santiago, Chile, and Tokyo, Japan. Scientist and organizer Lucky Tran said on social media that we are witnessing the biggest global anti-war protests since the Iraq War in 2003. And Ryan Grimm here sharing this out. This has to be the biggest pro-Palestinian march in U.S. history. Another clip here from Washington. Cori Bush Also, of course, in support of a ceasefire, writing here, St. Louis, D.C., South Korea, Germany, Norway.
I don't know why people are putting information in the chat in all caps. Please don't do that. Don't spam information in the chats in all caps.
South Africa, Puerto Rico, England, Japan, and so many more places. Millions of people marched today showing solidarity with the Palestinian people. And some images here from San Francisco. Big march here as well. Now, rather than advocating for a ceasefire, the Biden administration has pushed for humanitarian pauses in what critics are calling Israel's genocidal air and ground assault on Gaza, launched after Hamas-led surprise attack on Israel on October 7th.
Clean up your room.
After speaking with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the beginning of the war, Biden said that, quote, "My administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering." He quickly asked Congress for $14.3 billion for the Israeli war effort, on top of the typical $3.8 billion in annual U.S. military aid. It's important to clarify here just the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is a far right-winger. You have here the Democratic Party working with essentially the Trump of Israel. This is somebody who, just over the summer, reimagined how the courts operate to give himself more power. And there were protests over that in Israel as well. So this is somebody who, you know, in any other country, any other context, would not be seeing the kind of support he's seeing right now. But it's the Israeli government. And you have this unwavering support from all of its allies, regardless of the humanitarian disaster that it is engaging in. Speaking of that, Gaza's children face catastrophe as death toll nears 4,000. That's from the UN. Israeli bombs hit school being used as a shelter, while warning comes that children form 40% of fatalities. So important to clarify that roughly half of Gazans are children. The life expectancy there is incredibly low compared to other places for obvious reasons. You have a lack of resources, lack of food, lack of water. Even before this, because of the blockade in place by the Israeli government that controls most of Gaza's borders. So even before October 7th, it was a catastrophe. But now, of course, with this indiscriminate bombing, it's as worse as it could possibly be. And these are, I saw this and teared up. These are the names of all of the children that have been hit by Israel in Gaza. So, and it's a massive, that's the entire list. As Adrian writes here, please sit with this image. It's unbelievable what all of our governments right now are supporting. In Tel Aviv, Israel, you have protesters out there. Now, these people especially are incredibly brave for what they are doing. I'll get to why in a second here, but let me just play a bit of this. So Israel right now, the Israeli government is cracking down on these anti-war protesters. As the nation writes here, the crackdown has begun. Israel goes after critics of its Gaza war. Palestinians and Jews in Israel are being suspended from universities, fired from jobs, and subjected to night arrests, all because of social media posts. That's just social media. So the people in the streets are incredibly brave for going out and protesting their government. I want to end on this because this is, I will link to this below as I do all my sources, but this is a really great piece that goes into just what the impact any dissent of Israel is having on people's lives. As Vox writes, Israel's crackdown on dissent will only hurt it. So this is from Sigal Samuel, and this is somebody who is an author, has been critical of the Israeli government in the past, and he goes on before this to discuss how he was almost, or somebody complained about an appearance he was going to have, and luckily the venue held firm, and he was able to still do the appearance. But someone complained because he had been critical of Israel in the past. So as he writes here, if I, a Jew and citizen of Israel, am not allowed to question the Israeli government's narrative, then who is? The answer increasingly is nobody. And he goes on here to name person after person. So I'll do a few here, but I might be here all day if I read them all, that have been pushed out of their positions because of their criticism of the far right-wing Israeli government. So, as he writes, the answer increasingly is nobody. Not the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Viet-Thanh Nguyen, who was supposed to speak at Manhattan Cultural Hub 92NY, but saw his event abruptly pulled after he signed an open letter condemning Israel's war in Gaza. Not the editor-in-chief of science journal eLife, Michael Eisen, who was fired after reposting an Onion article about Gaza with the headline, "Dying Gazans Criticized for Not Using Last Words to Condemn Hamas." Not the Web Summit CEO, Paddy Cosgrave, who tweeted that war crimes are war crimes even when committed by allies, referring to Israel's war in Gaza, and then had to resign from leading Europe's biggest tech conference. Not the Boston Workers' Circle, a Jewish cultural center that got ousted from the Boston Jewish community's umbrella group after co-sponsoring a rally calling for a ceasefire. Not the Israeli professors, journalists, and lawmakers who have been suspended, fired, or even arrested for criticizing the war in Gaza. And not even the Israeli hostages who were recently released from Hamas captivity, when an 85-year-old hostage said that she was given access to medical care and treated well while in captivity. Israeli officials moved to prevent any similar press conferences in the future. So, as he goes on to write, American commentators viewing all this through the lens of American politics call the silencing of Israel's critics cancel culture, but I just got to pause there for a second. I think people are doing that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, because that is what the right wing tries to claim that the left is doing. Here is a clear example of what they complain about going on. And of course, people like Ben Shapiro are at the front of the voices that are excusing all of Israel's actions in Gaza. And again, he's someone who has been very focused on cancel culture, at least, you know, what he sees as cancel culture. But it's more serious than that. This is political repression, and that's a problem not only because it cuts against the values of free speech, but because it stands to hurt everyone, including Israel itself. So I'll link to the rest. It's a great article. It's worth reading, and it really gives you an idea of just how even something so obvious, so clear. Let's not support a far right-wing government bombing children, bombing anybody, bombing civilians in Gaza. Even just acknowledging that can possibly lead to you getting, fired, let go, become an outcast in your community because you are just stating something obvious.
All right, let's see. Mehdi San's The G Word. Mehdi San examines accusation of genocide against Israel and Hamas.
It is difficult to comprehend the sheer scale of suffering, hate, and violence that we have witnessed in Israel and in the occupied Palestinian territories in Gaza and the West Bank in recent weeks. How do you process those acts of terror perpetrated by Hamas on October the 7th, the mass murder of young Israelis at a concert or families in their homes, the most Jewish people killed in a single day since the Holocaust, an atrocity that a Hamas official this week threatened to repeat twice and 3 times? How do we process that? The over 1,400 dead at the hands of Hamas. How do we process the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, a siege of 2 million plus people led by an Israeli defense minister who declared that his country would eliminate everything in Gaza, including apparently the Jabalia refugee camp on Tuesday, struck at least twice by Israeli forces who say they were targeting a Hamas planner of the October 7th attacks there, but killed or wounded an estimated 400 people, according to the director of the nearby Indonesian hospital. This is an Israeli bombardment that has now killed, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, more than 8,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including more than 3,000 children. More kids killed in 3 weeks, according to Save the Children, than were killed in all the conflicts around the world in each of the past 4 years. So on both sides, you are hearing terms like atrocities, war crimes, crimes against humanity, come up again and again to describe what we are seeing and hearing. Even the G word. Yes, genocide. And it's that word, that term, that explosive accusation that I want us to examine today, that we can't shy away from examining. And look, it's not a word we should take lightly either. It's one of the worst crimes known to humankind. It's what the Jewish people were subjected to in the Holocaust. In more recent years, we think of Rwanda or Bosnia when the word genocide is mentioned. The President of the United States used it just last year in reference to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Mr. President, have you seen enough evidence to declare genocide in Ukraine, sir? Yes, I called it genocide because it's become clearer and clearer that Putin is just trying to wipe out the idea of even being able to be a Ukrainian.
And last month, speaking in Tel Aviv about the Hamas attack on Israel, President Biden referenced the Holocaust. Israeli ministers have called Hamas Nazis, and this week Israel's ambassador to the United Nations even donned a Holocaust-era yellow star to protest international calls for a ceasefire and a lack of an explicit UN condemnation of Hamas. Meanwhile, counter-terror expert Bruce Hoffman has argued in The Atlantic that Hamas is a genocidal organization. He points to its founding charter from 1988. Quote, Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it. There is no solution for the Palestine question except through jihad. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight Jews, killing the Jews. Now, Hamas did walk some of that back in a 2017 revision to their charter in which they claimed to oppose Zionists, that is, the state of Israel, not Jews, which many would say is a distinction without a difference for the Jewish families gunned down in their kibbutzim on October the 7th. And on Tuesday, a video emerged of a Hamas official calling for the annihilation of the state of Israel and a repeat of October the 7th. So look, it's not controversial here in the West to accuse Hamas of having genocidal goals, nor is it controversial to acknowledge that Jews in many parts of the world still face massive threats of anti-Semitic violence. I mean, just look at what happened in the Russian Republic of Dagestan this week, where an angry mob stormed the airport searching for Jews on a flight.
0100 Rose, thank you very much for subscribing. And George Smiley, thank you as well. Sorry I missed that. And Midnight Null Night, thank you for the 100 biddies. I appreciate it.
Just landed from Tel Aviv, an attempted pogrom. But to suggest Israel's rhetoric, or in fact actions in Gaza, are genocidal,
oh, damn, George Smiley. Thanks for gifting a tier 1 sub to Dead Nazine as well.
However, is hugely controversial. To many, it's offensive even to suggest Jews, victims of the worst genocide in human history, as Israelis, are now engaging in genocidal acts towards others. So you don't hear the genocide accusation against Israel made by Western governments or in much of the Western media, but that doesn't mean it's not being made by a lot of people. You are hearing it from protesters marching on college campuses and city streets, and from demonstrators disrupting official hearings.
What we're doing right now in supporting Israel's genocide of Gaza is a terrible thing.
And you're hearing it across the world, not just from Palestinian officials at the United Nations, but from United Nations' own special rapporteurs on human rights issues, and from a top Palestinian official.
Now in supporting Israel's genocide of Gaza is a terrible thing.
And you're hearing it across the world, not just from Palestinian officials at the United Nations, but from United Nations' own special rapporteurs on human rights issues, and from a top UN human rights official who quit after
I was just like, what the fuck is that weird sound?
30 years, citing the UN's failure to stop a, quote, genocide unfolding before our eyes, as well as from leading human rights groups and scholars of international law, and even from prominent world leaders, allies of the United States, like President Erdogan of Turkey and President Lula of Brazil.
Muito grave o que está acontecendo nesse momento no Oriente Médio. Ou seja, não se trata de ficar discutindo quem está certo, quem está errado, quem deu o primeiro tiro, quem deu o segundo. O problema é o seguinte aqui, não é uma guerra, é um genocídio que já matou quase 2.000 crianças que não tem nada a ver com essa guerra, que são vítimas dessa guerra.
Look, not all genocide talk is in good faith. The charge of genocide is a very serious one, and yet it gets tossed around a lot and in a lot of conflicts. It can be used recklessly, carelessly, insensitively, as an emotional shutting of the gates, rather than an opening to an important conversation. But it's also a real thing. So let's be clear today as to what genocide is, how it's defined under international law, and how it might apply in this current conflict. The term itself was coined during the Holocaust by Raphael Lemkin, a Polish lawyer of Jewish descent who had fled to the US as the Nazis advanced across Europe. After the war, he worked for prosecution in the Nuremberg war trials, and he spent the remainder of his life pushing for an international convention against genocide to prevent future Hitlers. In 1948, the United Nations, at Lemkin's urging, adopted the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, whose definition of the crime today is used by the International Criminal Court, as well as many countries, including the United States. It defined genocide the Genocide Convention, it defined genocide as any of 5 acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. They included killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the group's physical destruction, in whole or in part, and trying to prevent births within the group or forcibly taking its children. Any one of those acts undertaken with intent to destroy a people is genocide under international law. Now, the intent is the key. And last week, the pro-Israel Anti-Defamation League wrote that accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza is sensationalist, inaccurate, and misleading. Quote, the fact remains that in no way has Israel engaged in any action with the intent to exterminate in whole or in part the Palestinian people. This counter-argument says that if it was a genocide, why would the Israelis be dropping leaflets and making calls telling Gazans to evacuate? And why isn't the casualty count even higher? Here's the problem with that argument, though. Put aside that Israelis have still ended up killing, according to Gaza's health ministry, more than 8,000 Palestinians, including more than 3,000 children, including entire families, multiple generations. When it comes to quote-unquote intent in the context of the Genocide Convention, listen to what Israeli politicians and generals themselves have said. Cabinet ministers like Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, who said Israel was fighting human animals and ordered a complete siege on the Gaza Strip, no electricity, no food, no fuel. Or Energy Minister Israel Katz, who said no electrical switch will be turned on in Gaza, no water pump will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter until the Israeli abductees are returned home. Or Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu, who said blow up and flatten everything in the north of Gaza and give that land to Israeli settlers. Or Israeli President Isaac Herzog, who suggested that the innocent civilian population of Gaza, 2.3 million people, half of them children, weren't so innocent because they could have risen up against Hamas. Members of Benjamin Netanyahu's governing party in the Israeli Knesset, like Rev. Tal Gottlieb, who called for the use of a quote-unquote doomsday weapon to flatten Gaza without mercy. Serving and retired Israeli generals like Ghassan Alian, who also referred to animals in Gaza and said there will only be destruction. You wanted hell? You will get hell. Or Giora Ireland, who wrote that Israel needs to create a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist. Where no human being can exist. And if you think that's bad...
By the way, and it's another thing that why I tell you if you want to like basically push back against people online who are talking about how, well, no, come on, you can't use terms like ethnic cleansing or genocide. At the end of the day, those are very extreme terms, are very loaded. At this point, you know, this is simply a military, conflict, and there is going to be casualties. They're terrible. You can be like, well, why not reference a lot of legal scholars, especially people who study this exact field? Like, there are experts in the field. There's over 800 scholars actually who've signed on to a letter saying that this is demonstrating itself to have genocidal intent. So it's not something you have to well, wait, what about turn to Israel's leaders, you know, multiple different leaders, from generals to politicians, you know, they are saying a lot of this rhetoric out loud as well. You don't only have to turn to scholars who are like, well, after analyzing this and seeing what I see, this is certainly, it doesn't look good. I'll just say that.
Just listen to the man in charge of Israel's government and military speaking on Saturday.
You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible, and we do remember, and we are fighting.
That was Prime Minister Netanyahu invoking a biblical story in which the Israelites were told to exterminate, to literally kill all the men, women, and children from an ancient tribe called Amalek. Not a great reference when we're debating accusations of possible genocide.
Yeah, because if you know the rest of the quote, which I didn't until the internet showed it to everyone, I was like, oh, wow. So you're just saying it out loud, you know? That one's even not that big of a nod. It's kind of like, hey, by the way, and you can look it up for yourself at home and see what it says.
Intent, I think we can all agree.
Yeah, even the livestock.
Of course, as I said, for a lot of Israelis, for a lot of Jews, it is offensive to suggest they, of all people, are guilty of genocide or even incitement to genocide. And as I mentioned, the Israeli delegation to the UN turned up there this week wearing yellow stars with "never again" on them, which is beyond provocative, I think it's fair to say. One professor even argued in The Guardian last week that Israel must stop weaponizing the Holocaust. Now, perhaps that sounds like lazy ivory tower anti-Semitism to you. That's how the piece was denounced by many supporters of Israel online. But what if I told you it was written by Raz Siegel, an Israeli Jewish professor of Holocaust studies and genocide? He said, in the case of Israel's assault on Gaza, accountability needs to begin from what is very clear: incitement to genocide. And that's a key point. Even if you do not consider Israel's bombing campaign and siege of Gaza, which has killed...
I would also posit that I don't think The Guardian would have ran that story if it hadn't been someone of that stature making those claims.
...so many innocents to be genocidals, because you might say the civilians got warnings, they weren't the targets, collateral damage, etc. It's hard to defend the rhetoric of prominent Israeli officials, what sounds to many like incitement to genocide. It's why so many scholars of genocide, of war crimes, of international humanitarian law have been speaking out in recent days, including 800 scholars who signed on to a pretty stark public statement. Quote, "We are compelled to sound the alarm about the possibility of the crime of genocide being perpetrated by Israeli forces against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip," says that statement, signed by, among others, Omer Bartov, a preeminent Israeli scholar of the Holocaust at Brown University.
There's another one going around right now. In Canada, we, the members of the legal profession, so these are lawyers in Canada, are concerned with the open pervasive repression of speech and parliament liberation. Read our open letter signed by 350 lawyers, legal workers, and academics. I've joined in signing this letter. It is jarring that we have to advocate against the repression of pro-Palestinian political speech while nothing is being done to stop actual genocide. Criminalization and smearing are part of the maintenance of a status quo power and must be confronted.
And Marion Kaplan, an acclaimed Jewish historian of the Holocaust at NYU and three-time winner of the National Jewish Book Award. It continues, the statement, quote, "We do not do so lightly, recognizing the weight of this crime, but the gravity of the current situation demands it." The gravity of the current situation demands it. That's what we have to keep at the forefront of our minds. The gravity of the current situation. Over 1,400 killed in Israel by Hamas on October the 7th, and more than 8,000 killed in Gaza since by Israel. Extremists on both sides using rhetoric that the other, not surprisingly, considers to be genocidal. Now, whether what has happened or whether what is happening right now in Gaza is a genocide or even a crime against humanity, ultimately some court or tribunal may have to decide.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I think this whole segment, obviously some people might construe it as a both sidesing of the issue, but I think with like MSNBC of all places, for the first like 2 or 3 minutes of this, he has to position this entire thing knowing that he's talking to an audience of liberals, right? And getting liberals to acknowledge how bad things have gotten, I think will require the consistent, by the way, what Hamas did was bad, by the way, October 7th was horrifying, by the way, I just want to say that like these actions are not being justified by myself or the, like, you know, the network before we talk about this, but you should know that it's not just, you know, a couple people at protests saying that Israel's committing a genocide. This is something that hundreds of legal scholars have signed on to talking about. This is something that numerous organizations that track this kind of stuff worldwide, including things like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the Red Cross, they are also speaking out about that. Not to mention, if you want to listen to the words of Israeli officials themselves, from lawmakers to generals, speaking about this with, yes, what I would characterize as genocidal intent. That's how you'd have to frame it, you know, for an audience like this.
Either way, the sheer level of inhumanity, suffering.
I don't think it's very both sides when you've got Aaron to the hundreds of people and no signing a petition, as he pretty much said it's a genocide repeatedly, yeah.
Mass death is undeniable, and it makes growing calls for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, from everyone from the Financial Times editorial board to the Pope in the Vatican, not surprising either, and oh so urgent.
Yeah, I think that was a really good segment, especially to appear on a mainstream television network on MSNBC in a main protest. Oh, sorry, in a main program. That's really good. The bombing around the hospitals where I sleep. Around 50,000 displaced people live at Al Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. They're being forced from their homes.
Good morning. It's Isan. I'm still alive. It's now 4 a.m. in Gaza, and this is the first thing that I do every day when I get up, is to, of course, wake up as early as I can to find a place to brush my teeth and wash my face and avoid long queues to the bathrooms.
A pro-Palestine activist in Calgary, Canada was just arrested. He's reportedly being charged with a hate crime for saying, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Update: a source clarifying the charge was downgraded to disturbing the peace, while the arresting officer allegedly characterized "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" as anti-Semitic. This statement allegedly warrants the arrest following the legal process, says documentary filmmaker Robert Inlakesh.
As 50 to 60,000 people are using the same bathrooms inside the shelters, and although it is salty water, at least we can have water. Until now, there's no options.
So I have waited until 6 a.m. So someone can make me tea. People here are trying to make the hospital as their neighborhood. So some people here are selling drinks.
They're shaving, they're eating, they're making everything normal as much as they can. That was a hard bomb. Even though we don't have internet to connect to you guys to what is happening in Gaza, we can also make interviews with international channels. I really hope everything we're doing can make our voices heard. So it's almost 7 p.m. I was going to sleep because I want to sleep early to avoid hearing the sounds of the bombs and everything. But now they are bombing around the Shifa hospital where I sleep. They bombed already next to Shifa. The ambulance is going to carry the injuries. I'm really scared to go to my tent. I don't know where to go. I don't know if I will sleep tonight. May God bless us and make it easy night.
Obviously, I don't want to show you all the footage of all the horrifying scenes going on in Gaza right now. There's a lot of nonstop horror. You know, I've said before, I don't think I've ever in my entire life of covering, you know, global conflicts or war zones seen a never-ending stream of the just dead, limp bodies of kids whose, like, you know, corpses have been burnt beyond belief. It's like, it's one of those things where there's been so many times where I've just, like, randomly turned on the social media. It doesn't even have to be Twitter. It could be fucking Facebook or anything right now. And you're just like, holy shit, there's so many horrifying clips coming out right now. Why is no one stopping this? It just, like, it makes you feel utter and completely hopeless sometimes. A pair of siblings in Gaza City. This is at least one in which, you know, they were searching for their family member injured, came to the camp following the Israel airstrikes. This doesn't show obviously dead kids, but shows you how traumatized they are.
طيب انت ايش ايش هاي نجي خليك هان خفف طب خليك هان خفوف تعال لا هاي اخواتي تعال يا عم ولاد مين انتوا طب بتاع مين عند مين خافش يا عم مين بدك عند مين قاعدين خافش يا عم
All the fucking dust. I wasn't like, I'm not going to show you the other videos, but I'm sure a lot of people at this point have seen the ones where you've got, you know, kids who are so traumatized they can barely speak and shit like that. Those are the ones who are alive. There's the one of the little kid who gets pulled out of rubble who thinks that she's dead. And asks, am I dead, to the people who are like saving her life. There's the one of the little brother who's like trying to hear the sounds of his parents underneath the rubble and trying to find them. Like, it's just like day after day after day. It is just the most horrifying and harrowing fucking footage possibly imaginable. And in the midst of all that, yeah, that's why there's an international cry for a ceasefire, because people don't want to know that they're all signing off on this. They're all fucking funding this, like actually funding this, you know? If you live in the US or Canada, you're funding this. And like, no matter how many gaffes you're gonna see fucking, you know, Justin Trudeau have, where it's like, we call for a cease to the questions you're asking me, no more. Like, it's not changing things fast enough, I think is just the reality. All right. Give me one sec. I'm just gonna grab a drink and we'll go on to the big revelations of Steven Crowder, because I gotta cover that as well. Oh yeah, Trump appeared in trial.
Donald
today.
Trump is back in the news as he took the witness stand in his civil fraud trial in New York and had a bit of a battle with the judge. So I'm going to get to some of those quotes later on in this video. Unfortunately, there's no video from the courtroom. There only is like before and after. There's no questioning or video of the questioning, which I really thought we were going to get that. Maybe in a different case. But still, as you'll see, the quotes are fantastic, and I think they do help to capture what went on there. But before I even get to what this case is, in case you don't know, or to catch you up, this is the best thing to come out of today. This courtroom sketch. I don't know what it is. I absolutely love this sketch. I will likely put this in the thumbnail. When I first saw this, I thought of this.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
It really helps to capture Trump. Somebody who, pretends to be this big, strong man, but ultimately is incredibly weak and ugly. It captures him perfectly. So this case is the $250 million lawsuit brought by the New York AG's office, alleging that Trump and his co-defendants committed repeated fraud in inflating assets on financial statements to get better terms on commercial real estate loans and insurance policies. This judge already ruled the former president is liable for fraud, and he's considering how much the Trumps will have to pay in damages. So to be clear again, it's already ruled that they committed fraud. Now it's about the damages. So the case is civil, not criminal, but threatens Trump's business in New York. James is seeking to bar Trump from doing business in the state and to dissolve his companies. Trump's testimony Monday will also serve as a precursor to the 4 criminal trials he faces next year as he campaigns to regain the presidency. All right. Let me get to, before I get to any of these quotes, just a back-to-back, a before and after for the first round of questioning, because it really gives you it showcases how talkative Trump is beforehand, and then watch the after video.
It's a very sad situation for our country. We shouldn't have the assistance for third world countries, and very unfair. It's very unfair. But in the meantime, the people of the country understand it. They see it.
Huh. All right, so before the questioning, he would not shut up. In fact, of course, I cut that clip down. It was 2 minutes of him just talking nonstop. And then cut to after the first round of questioning. That's after he had, the spar match with the judge. He had nothing to say, not in a good mood. So this gets to at least the first bit here. In less than an hour on the stand so far Monday, Trump has repeatedly launched into monologues, causing Judge Engoron to repeatedly instruct him to answer the questions he's asked. After one such exchange, Trump reportedly remarked that he was sure the judge will rule against him, because Engoron always does. Trump being a child here, but this was the big issue throughout the first round of questioning, was just he would keep talking. Trump kept treating the witness stand as a podium at a rally. And the judge had to interject again and again, as you'll see, reminding him to actually just answer the questions. So this is the only video we're going to get, unfortunately, from the courtroom.
I love that any parents recognize this pattern of behavior. I know. He's a spoiled baby. He always has been.
You see him here pretending he's not scared. It's a very serious face. But that's the most we're going to get in terms of video from the courtroom. But
this baby can't spell.
Here's where it begins. So at one point, as Trump began to testify, Engoron asked him to please move it along and answer the questions. Some of the questions haven't been responsive, the judge added. Trump looked ahead as the judge said this, never turning toward him. This is also a common theme throughout the questioning, is Trump attacks the judge, but doesn't look at the judge while doing so.
Yeah, it's another thing. Oh man, he's such a spoiled baby.
I'm not sure if this is like an antisocial tell or what's going on here, but
I love that.
It's almost as if Trump knows he's full of crap, so he has a hard time looking at the person he is admonishing because he can't do it while looking at them because he knows he's being dishonest. Again, I'm reading a lot into it. Who knows why he does this, but this is a common thing that Trump does. He'll attack somebody without ever actually looking at them. And this was hilarious. So during questioning, Trump attorney Chris Kise referred to his client as the future president of the United States, citing a poll that I will get to later on in this video, which does not look good for Joe Biden. But like, my read on this is that Chris Kise wants to get paid. He knows Trump is not known for paying his lawyers or really anybody. So he's trying to compliment Trump here as much as possible publicly to soften him up and hopefully get paid in the process. Judge Engoron asked Trump's attorneys if they could control him in the courtroom. He said, "This is not a political rally. Maybe you need to have a talk with him right now." Again, going to how Trump kept going on these monologues. And then the judge got angry, which, I mean, I could totally see, considering how frustrating Trump sounds. But the judge is again asking Trump's lawyers to have him answer questions directly while on the stand. That was a simple yes or no answer, the judge said. "I beseech you to control him." The judge went back and forth with Kise, with the judge saying, "I don't want to hear everything he has to say." Haba, another Trump lawyer, then told the judge that Wallace needs to ask better questions, saying more succinct questions will give more succinct answers. Quote,
he's trying to do the Alex Jones thing.
We are not here to hear what he has to say," Engoron responded. "We are here to have him answer questions." "It's not that simple," Haba replied. "I am not here to hear what he has to say. Now sit down!" Exclamation mark. So he actually raised his voice here. And this quote right here, "I'm not here to hear what he has to say," is something that Trump is now using as a way to try and claim, "Oh, look how unfair the judge is. He doesn't want to hear what I have to say." When really it's referring to, I don't want to hear Trump's monologues. I want to hear him answer the questions. But this is the kind of thing, if there is any strategy or motive at all behind what Trump is doing here, this was the reason, to try and get the judge to say something that could be maybe used against him in some way. Though ultimately, I don't think there was any real strategy here. I just think Trump being Trump, and he's always gone through life like this, and it's always worked out for him generally. So I doubt there was a motive or an attempt to try and get the judge to do this.
Okay, I'm going to move on from this story to the big Steven Crowder story of the day. If you haven't been following this one, Steven Crowder is trying desperately to get you all to notice him. He's tweeting about this a lot. He's making a lot of noise. And as soon as I saw him tweeting about this, that he in fact had the first, he's breaking this story. He's not often the one who breaks the story. He's the one who just twists it into his own weird, perverse narrative. But in this case, Steven Crowder, breaking news, apparently has a copy of the Nashville shooters' manifesto, the one that every right-winger was so desperate to get a copy of. He himself has, and it's validated as far as Steven Crowder says this is an authentic piece. It could be. I'm not here to report on the fact that it could be fake or it could not be. We just don't know if it's validated. As of this time, it hasn't been. Absolutely a content warning, but don't worry, I won't be talking about I won't be giving the shooter's name or releasing the manifesto itself, as both have been shown to inspire other mass shooters. But Steven Crowder doesn't care about that. None of them do. None of them care about mass shooting. You know why they care so much about this one specifically? They care about this one specifically because the shooter in this case was trans. The shooter is a trans man. It is, once again, a white male shooter who did a mass shooting event of a school. But they felt, every single one of them, from Steven Crowder to Tim Pool to Matt Walsh, all of them were screaming and making videos, and you can go watch them because there's so many videos on this topic. This was all they were obsessed with, that this had something to potentially do with the fact that they were trans, and that the manifesto would reveal that. And that's why they never released the manifesto. I'm sure you all remember that over and over and over. It's like, why won't they release the manifesto? Why won't they release the manifesto? Well, the police department ended up making a statement about that, saying that the so-called manifesto isn't actually a manifesto at all, that they had found what seemed to be journal entries, and those journal entries do not have a strict political ideology. It's more like tons of rambling rants in them. That's what the official statement had been from the police. However, Steven Crowder has gotten, apparently, according to him, it's been verified. Louderrecorder.com is the verification source in this regard. But either way, could turn out to be completely true. Has revealed the manifesto, some of the pages, select pages, and now the narrative has switched. It is no longer because of trans people or trans ideology. That's not the reason. It was anti-white racism all along. Haha, you see. Got you all. All of you anti-white or pro-white racists, I guess, out there. Yeah, all of you people who think it's okay for this to happen because you hate white people. All those people. Well, look at this. This was a mass shooting where the people were specifically targeted because they were white. And his evidence is the use of a slur. It is, I can't say on Twitch, it is a banned word. It is a use of the C slur for white people is present in the alleged manifesto, in the pages there. There's other slurs too, though. And the most frequent slur that is used in the pages he's released is the F slur. The F slur, calling the potential victims the F slur over and over and over again. Steven Crowder, right-wingers pivot to white privilege argument after Nashville shooter manifesto doesn't discuss gender. What? And if you're like, well, they didn't talk about it, yes, they did. If you were to add words, say in like the YouTube search, Nashville shooter was trans, Tim Pool. Nashville shooter is trans, targeted Christians. Christians. That was the original narrative, that this was a trans shooter who was targeting Christians or cis people, you know? Trans groups say Nashville shooter is a, quote, martyr. Martyr. Yes. You see, trans people have chosen this as their martyr, and that's why they won't reveal the manifesto. Because if the manifesto came out, it would be distinctly revealed that this shooter did a mass shooting specifically because they were trans or because of trans ideology or gender ideology or any of the fancy words that we like to say to make it sound as if we have any fucking idea what we're talking about. But when the alleged manifesto comes out, everyone has changed what they're talking about. Everything is changing in real time. I think the Courtroom did a whole bunch of things about this. Hold on. And this is once again to distract people. Oh, YouTube search doesn't let you search the Courtroom anymore. Oh, that makes sense. It is a vile cesspool of filth of the highest order.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be.
Alright, so if we look up the Quarterings videos, very suspicious update on Nashville manifesto, including bizarre coded messages that may be written on the body. Police now refusing to release the Nashville manifesto. What is going on here? Trans ban reporting on Trans Day of Vengeance that was supposed to happen. Trans Day of Vengeance shut down. It takes a bizarre turn, including the Trans Day of Vengeance apparently was, they all started getting afraid that trans people were going to become mass shooters, even though the vast majority of trans people are not mass shooters and the vast majority of mass shooters are cis people. And so, yeah, statistically, it turns out if you look at the amount of mass shootings that have happened in the United States and you look at the percentage of trans people that there are, that you are statistically less of a mass shooter if you are trans. Yes, I know. It's the science is shocking on this one too. Live updates on Nashville. Nashville copycat monster busted. They were refusing to release the manifesto. Pressure from leftists claim dire consequences. They're coming after us. The leftists are coming after us. Now, if we go to Steven Crowder's page, Steven Crowder, he's very proud. Okay, let's go back to 7 months ago. Nashville shooting, we have updates. Was it a hate crime? By
the way, just passed an education bill, school vouchers we're fans of, and we'll be talking about John Leguizamo TikTok. But before we move on, my question to you for today is two things. First off, what's your take on the Nashville shooter potentially swapping shoes? This is going out there and, you know, it could be a complete conspiracy. Right. Or do you think that it does raise some questions and the fact that it's not being acknowledged by anybody? That's one of those things. That's where people start putting on their tinfoil hats because there's no transparency. Also, look, I'm going to take an unpopular stance today, but just listen to me. This was not a hate crime, Nashville. I don't want to use the left's language. It's terrorism. Terrorism is enough. Oh, hate crime, a crime, terrorism, murder does not need a footnote. So let's not start using the language of the left. That's not going to turn out how you want it to. Comment below. All right, Gerald A., how are you, Mr. CEO?
Oh, right. Because again, the narrative was targeting Christians. That's what it was. This was a targeting specifically of Christians. Yes. It's changed. It's evolved. And that doesn't matter to any of them, though. Right? It's like they're just going to jump to the next thing. Okay, well, here's another thing we're mad at. In March 2023, a trans man shot and killed 6 people at a school in Nashville, Tennessee. In the wake of the shooting, police obtained a manifesto of the shooter, which was kept unreleased as authorities investigated. Because of the gender identity of the shooter, a number of conservatives used the incident to push claims of a trans mass shooting pandemic, wherein an armed trans community was hunting down cisgender people who refused to accept their gender identities. By the way, even though they're completely changing their narrative in real time, and now they're going to anti-white racism, and you see them all posting about that, just like clockwork, of course, Ian Miles Chong is coming out, oh, we told you this was anti-white racism. Steven Crowder's pushing it. Matt Walsh is running with the whole thing. I'm sure he's probably got a video up already about this very topic. Don't let them just continue to lie, to spew hate and bile, and to cause mass panics and be like, trans people are trying to assassinate us. The trans day of revenge is coming. Did you know trans people own firearms? They're armed and ready and dangerous. They're going to kill us all. We have to do something about these trans people. And now it's switched to another thing that we love talking about. White racism, when people are very, very racist towards white people. And now, because of the use of the C word in the document that Steven Crowder is releasing, they're completely changing their narrative in real time. Like I said, I just showed you, all the videos are still up. Their videos haven't been taken down, but every single fucking, bigot, pundit, anti-LGBTQ plus transphobe who makes a living off this, who gets fucking paid handsomely to go after marginalized communities, all of them, right away. Oh, sorry. It's like that meme the right always posts, where it's like one chip gets taken out of the NPC and then the other chip like goes in that they only use because they don't understand how news cycles work, by the way. But that's them when it comes to things they want to be outraged about. It's like trans panic. All right, that one's take out trans panic, put in white racism. All right, white racism activated. And then boom, now they're all doing the exact same thing. All right, sweet, we have new shit to talk about. Steven Crowder has given us a new little gift. Let's all talk about how this anti-white racism, where again, I will remind you, the F slur is used like towards the very people that they're claiming is anti-white racism. Those same people are being called the F slur more times than they were called the C word in the same manifesto. Does that mean that this was a anti-LGBTQ plus hate crime committed by a LGBTQ plus person? Does that what this means? Or is it like the police said, not able to determine a single political narrative or political ideology that would claim to understand or denote a motivation behind the shooting in terms of what they are trying to point towards politically? But they won't do that. Got the new one. Yep. Trans panic goes right to fucking anti-white racism. We got the next one, and engage. More shit. No such pandemic exists, but the fact that the manifesto was kept under lock for so long helped aid the argument that the government was trying to secretly keep hidden the fact that trans people were hell-bent on murder. Today, right-wing vlogger Steven Crowder released 3 pages of what he says was the trans shooters manifesto on his live stream. While it's not the full manifesto, according to Crowder, there were many, many more pages. Nothing in it discusses the shooter's transition or gender identity. Oh, could you not find any of that? Could you not find that? Because if you had found that, oh wow, yeah, I'm guessing you probably would have published it, because again, it would validate all of the transphobic shit you had been saying earlier. But it turns out that was just transphobic conspiracy theories. Again, promoted on the algorithm by the good old YouTube, and you got paid handsomely, as did Matt Walsh, as did every other person who fucking publishes this shit. And now, even though you have proof that you yourself are putting out, I should add, like Steven Crowder himself is the one publishing the proof in the opposite direction, he's now like, oh yeah, so we told you we were right. It was a white racist all along who hated white people. That's what we were talking about. We said it was a hate crime, remember? No, worse than a hate crime. It was terrorism. We meant, well, we did say Christians based on trans people going after Christianity, but what we meant was anti-white racists who hate white people and call them the C word, who are also white. The shooter uses gay slurs to describe people at his school. The manifesto seems to be more direct towards white kids, calling them the C word. In kicking off the show, Crowder called the manifesto pretty disturbing, but also noted what seemed to motivate the shooter was not the trans identity, but hatred of white people and hatred of white privilege. There it is. A hate of white privilege. That's going to be the reason now going forward. It was a lot more worded towards class, people being rich, being those rich motherfuckers with all their white privilege kind of style. That was a lot more of what it was directed to in the passages that they published. But again, that one doesn't play as well in right-wing circles. They clearly had already invested so much time and energy into the story that already they know that their fans are ravenous for more of this kind of content. Except now it's like, oh shit, yeah, I guess we can't use the whole... Well, I don't want to say that we lied to you, that there was this mass panic event that we were trying to curate that was actually going to result in a lot of real-world violence towards a marginalized community. I don't want to do that. I don't want to say that we were just causing a mass panic for fucking money. That would be kind of wild, wouldn't it? And the fact that we just got away with it, and even though that we're publishing our own fucking proof that disproves our own theories, that was kind of fucked up for us to do. All right, this person hated white folk. This was a anti-white, white racist. That's what this was. During his live stream, Crowder noted how the motivations of recent shootings, such as the Buffalo and Jacksonville, were revealed to be racially motivated immediately following the incidents. Nashville, however, wasn't initially labeled as racially motivated, leading Crowder to now claim the manifesto was kept under wraps for its race content instead of its gender identity concerns. They're just doing this shit. They lie to your face. They profit from it. They completely lied. They did a mass panic event. They then published their own evidence that proves that they were wrong, and they switched the story because this one works better. It's just right, boom, just like that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, this is a white hating person who committed the mass shooting. He was a white racist. He was a white racist. Oh sorry, I guess I'm using the correct pronouns there. That would be wrong. In the pages Crowder released, there was also a timeline of the day the shooter wrote out, which included filmed video. While it's unclear if a video was filmed, now a number of right-wingers online are demanding the video gets released. Because it's fucking bigoted clown shoes. This whole thing is a bigoted circus for clicks from outrage fucking merchants. All of the outrage merchants, by the way, who know they're lying, clearly. Who don't care. They don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter. You just move on to the next thing that they know that will make them a lot of money, which is, oh yes, well, let's talk about the white racist mass shooter who was, well, okay, we don't mention the mass shooter was white, but anyways, a mass shooting event of white people perpetrated by someone who used the C word. Here we are. And boom, we have a new monster of the month, you know? That's exactly what they do. So yeah, that's as much as is known. Completely unrelated, but this one's just silly. Oh, sorry, hold on 1 second. Some communities on Reddit have reportedly decided that fans of podcaster Joe Rogan have no place in their subreddit. According to a screenshot shared by X, the Justice Served and Sailor Moon subreddits have banned users for participating in the Joe Rogan subreddit. Sailor Moon, say it ain't so. The Sailor Moon subreddit is banning you if you're a Joe Rogan fan. They're cancel culturing Joe Rogan fans. You've been banned for participating in a subreddit that is consistently shown to provide a refuge for promotion of hate, violence, and misinformation. Joe Rogan. Read the screenshots as Justice Served. The message from Sailor Moon similarly used the participation with its moderators because we think you participated in a subreddit known for its hate and hateful things. Says Sailor Moon. Nanny. There's some uwu going on here. This includes serious issues such as racism, LGBTQ plus hate, transphobia, genocide denial, or other such things. Damn, Rogan fans. It was already revealed that Rogan fans, by the way, apparently women are reporting that it is, in fact, and this is contrary to a lot of online red pill community beliefs, but a turnoff if it turns out that you are a fan of Joe Rogan, a so-called red flag. Yes, that very thing. Who knew? Who knew people would want to date someone who's constantly like, oh, fucking women are dumb. Yeah, they're fucking stupid. Yeah, that didn't. Yeah, I imagine that's probably not a he's a keeper, you know, style territory.
But this Salon piece still stands out for how blatant and flagrant it is. Here's how the piece begins. Quote, the House of Representatives now... But this Salon piece still stands out for how blatant and flagrant it is.
Oh, I just want to start before we watch this clip. I obviously, just from knowing Matt Walsh is an extreme white supremacist who fucking fetishizes, you know, the genocide of indigenous people and shit like that. This disgusting motherfucker, he obviously loved the Inquisition. I didn't need to know him. Like, I didn't need to see him saying it brazenly out loud. The Inquisition, you know, is based, actually. But I assumed. I assumed very, very strongly that Matt Walsh would be a fan of the Inquisition. Yes, absolutely. Why wouldn't he be? It's like everything he loves all at once.
But this salon piece still stands out for how blatant and flagrant it is. Here's how the piece begins. Quote, the House of Representatives, now run by Mike Johnson, offers a discount version of the apocalyptic orgasm that holy rollers have dreamed of for years. They've renewed the Inquisition and seem determined to convert the U.S. into a theocracy run by people who will thump you with the Bible but haven't read much of it. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, where has that happened? Like, what is he talking about? Where have Republicans done anything that could be remotely compared to the Inquisition? Now, of course, the Inquisition gets a bad rap anyway, but
oh, man, he comes from a long line of witch burners and torturers, you know?
it's a topic for a different day. But in what way is Mike Johnson ushering in a theocracy? Is he proposing making church attendance compulsory? Has he tried to pass a law forbidding the practice of non-Christian religions? Has he burned any atheists at the stake recently? As far as I know, the answer is no on all counts.
Okay, so I probably don't need to go into too much detail about the Inquisition being fucked up, actually. Yeah, really fucked up, and not something that human beings should ever repeat, you know? I think, you know, the mass torture of individuals on the basis of religion, and we're talking some of the most cruel and painful torture that any human being has ever crafted. Oh boy, they were creative in one category, that's for sure. They can't tell you a lot about what heaven was actually going to be like, you know? Like, oh, so what am I going to experience in heaven? Like, what's the day-to-day? Like, what do I do? You wake up, and it's like, oh, well, you will be in the glory and light of God 24/7. Cool. Like, do I get to chat, hang out with other people? You know, like, is there food? Do we eat? She's like, you will need nothing. You will be wanting of nothing, but for the light of God will be upon you at all times. Cool. I know. I'm all for that light of God. That sounds great. You know, the light of God sounds fun and warm and shit. I'm just wondering, do like baths? Do we get baths? Do we get or anything? You know, that might be nice. Is there other people there? Oh, and yeah, I mean, okay, hold on. Let's pull up some of the torture methods. Defendants were commonly interrogated under torture and finally punished if found guilty. And by the way, if you're wondering what they're tortured for, they're tortured in this case most likely for being Jewish. Yeah, that's one reason. For being Muslim, that's another reason. Yeah, those are two groups that were very heavily persecuted and tortured by the Inquisition, and that's simply for your religious beliefs. And today, you might not know this, but if you ever travel to Spain, a lot of my family lives in Spain. I'm half Catalonian, and you know, there's a lot of amazing, delicious, incredible cured meats. Jamon serrano. You'll actually see sometimes just like salted meat hanging on like, you know, a pig's leg inside a bar, and they just slice it off fresh and then like put it right on your plate and stuff like that. There's so many cured meats that are found within a whole bunch of Spanish homes, especially it's considered, you know, something very traditional and customary that you will have as an appetizer, even as part of the dinner itself in the middle of the table. A lot of delicious salted cured meats. A lot of that originates back to the times of the Inquisition, to find out if your guests that you had at the dinner table may be Muslim or maybe Jewish, because they would not partake in the eating of the swine, you see. And so this would be one way to be able to root out potential religious apostates amongst you at the very dinner table in your home, so you could quickly tell the inquisitors that you had a Muslim amongst you, you know, and that they needed to be taken care of, tortured, questioned, and then tortured again if they were still alive. So some of the methods, there was the strapado. The victim was lifted to the ceiling with his arms tied behind his back. The rack, the prisoner was tied to a frame and the executioner pressed until meat was pierced. Water cure, the prisoner was tied, a cloth was inserted into the mouth, down the throat, and jugs of water approximately 1 liter were poured. Now these, of course, are, you know, you could say waterboarding is still done today. I mean, we still do various forms of, you know, variations on this kind of torture. But there's other methods as well, such as putting rats in cages and holding candles to the rats until the rats would actually devour devour the inside of the human being as they were trying to escape from the heat itself. You know, that's why they call it medieval torture. It's torture. It's all just horrifying shit. So Inquisition, yeah, gotta disagree with Matt Walsh on this one. Historically, pretty fucking bad. We have a lot of information on the Inquisition, and it's just not generally being a good thing, you know? Not the kind of thing you want to be like, yeah, fucking people go off about the Inquisition. Wasn't that rough? I Inquisition my kids multiple times a day. Oh, we already talked about the melting of the statues. The racist statues. Charlie Kirk compares himself to Jesus. I just wanted to see this, you know? I know they all have delusions of grandeur, but like, I didn't know if they had, you know, this whole comparison. Please warn us before describing torture. Sorry, I should have done a content warning. If I make it into a segment, I'll put content warning, descriptions of torture.
Adam Kinzinger will not leave.
Oh, by the way, content warning, Charlie Kirk. This one
Adam
is just
Kinzinger
a broad content.
Adam Kinzinger will not leave. Even though we're trying to kick him out, even though we tell him there's no place for it. Because he's an insurgent. He is there as an infiltrator. And one of the positives.
Okay, so everyone was like, his head looks appropriately sized for his face, and the last one, that was suspect. I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh, I guess he's kind of repositioning himself in terms of like the face to head ratio. But I'm proud to say it looks as if he's returned. It seems now like his, yeah, I think he has access to the app, that one you have online, where you get to shrink his face.
The Trump movement is that we finally can take the masks off of these pretenders to reveal the people within the Republican Party that are not one of us. And what I find hilarious is sometimes people say, but Charlie, why can't we just unify with the Adam Kinzinger types? Why don't you ask them that question? Why don't you ask Adam Kinzinger why he can't unify with his voters? The Republican Party is changing for the better. The ideas are resonating more and more with our voters. We're becoming far more skeptical of nation building abroad. We finally are waking up to the fact that the southern border matters more than the border of Ukraine. When people say, Charlie, why can't you get along with Adam Kinzinger? It would be like asking...
Are they? No, they just pick different wars. They're all warmongers. It doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republicans. All of them are fucking warmongers. It's just like, well, when you get Republicans, it's like Iran and China. Yeah, let's go to war with those two. Yeah, let's do that one. And then with the Democrats, it's like, we need to fund Israel and make sure Israel is able to defeat Hamas. Yeah. And then Republicans are like, we need to fund Israel to make sure Israel is able to defeat Hamas. They both agree on that one. That's the one conflict. Doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Everyone's got money for that.
Jesus, why he can't unify with Judas. Hey, Julius Caesar, can you get along with Brutus? Or Cassius? There's only so many times you could be knifed in the back by these people.
I guess that is kind of funny. It's a clickbait headline for sure, but I mean he does compare situations, you know. It is quite lofty. It's I don't know. I think he doth protest too much. I think it's just getting a little too extra, you know. This is, you know, come on. Charlie's kind of having a glow up here. It's a little moment where it's like, you know, you ask me to agree with this guy, you know, with Jesus, agree to be, you know, unify with Judas, huh? Or did you get stabbed in the back? Like I'm being stabbed right now.
John McCain, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan types. These people are actively attempting and trying to destroy us and the movements we care about. And then people say, well, why can't you work with people who hate you and sabotage you and lie about you and try to throw you in prison?
That's the best ending pause. I didn't do that. That's the end of the clip. So that's the full 151 clip ending right here. Let me boom. Clip is over. That's not me. I do not take credit for this incredible pause moment. This was just the magic of where the screen ended. That's a really good one. I believe this one was done by God. Yes, maybe Jesus. I'm not sure. There's many gods we can worship. You know, we can worship Jesus. We can worship Allah. We can worship Shem, many gods. All right, got that. We got ourselves a new Charlie Kirk emote. Thanks, Charlie, for the gifts. I'm not going to play this whole thing, but People Make Games is a really, really great channel. I'm a huge fan of it. And they just did a new episode about how the gaming industry has to speak up about Palestine. The games industry must not stay silent. I can't play the whole thing, unfortunately. I don't have time, but I wanted to check it out.
2 years ago, a games journalist and a friend of mine, Timur Hussein, who you may know from his work on GameSpot and Giant Bomb, released a video that made me feel ashamed. He asked the games industry why it didn't have more to say about what was happening in Palestine, despite being so vocal, so passionate, and so informed when it came to other crises of social justice.
By the way, I want to say, People Make Games, this is one of the reasons why because I am a gamer myself. I don't like the brush of gamers being just terrible, horrifying misogynists. There are a lot, and obviously Gamergate has shown itself to really bring out the ugliness of a lot of people. But like any form of art, especially popular art, when it's used by lots of people, there's going to be really good gamers and really shit gamers as well. People Make Games are one of the groups that actually...
And I remember watching that video and thinking, I don't have a good answer to that question. Which is mad, by the way, because I'm British and my country has played an absolutely enormous role in this tragedy and continues to do so to this day. And when it comes to video games, well, this medium has an extremely uncomfortable history with its portrayal of the Middle East and the people who live there. How many massive video games have conflated Arabs with dangerous terrorists over the years? That has had an impact. Timur's video encouraged me and others working in and around video games to educate ourselves, to make charitable donations, and to be brave enough to say two things at once. First of all, no Israeli or Palestinian civilian deserves to suffer as they have. There is horror and misery on both sides of this, and it has to stop. And secondly, in no way discounting that previous statement, it's important to say that Israeli and Palestinian people do not live the same kind of lives. Israel is a nuclear power with the full backing of the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and many other Western states behind it. Palestine, well, Palestine doesn't even control its own electricity or water supplies because Israel controls them. This is not a war between two military equals, it is an occupation and a siege. And it's been that way for a very, very long time. Given what's happening right now, I've been thinking a lot about Timur's video because over the years I have seen the games industry rally behind causes.
The top Israeli officials threatened to nuke or say nuking Gaza was a table or an option.
Or more recently, all of the money that was raised in support of Ukraine after Russia's invasion. There is solidarity here in this industry, but not for this, not for Palestine. Which is why we've asked Timur to use whatever platform we have here at People Make Games to speak to the industry once again, to ask people to care, to learn, and to do whatever they can to help. Later in the video, you'll also be hearing from Rami Ismail, a video game developer who's been advocating for Palestinians for many, many years, and perhaps most importantly of all, you'll also hear from Rashid Abu Aida, a game developer who lives in the West Bank and has first-hand experience of the conditions in Palestine.
Maybe you see like these red dots, laser dots that's coming from guns in games, but actually I see it on my body every night almost. When I pass a checkpoint, there is always an M16 or something like that pointed to your head.
Some of you may question the decision we've made in this video not to include voices which disagree with the idea that Palestine is being oppressed by Israel. Well, we think to do that in this moment, to present what's happening in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, as something that's up for debate, is a mistake, and a dangerous one. Israel has been the victim of a devastating attack that must be condemned in the strongest words possible. There's no denying that. But its response over the last few weeks has involved the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians. And the response from the Western world, including my own government, has been to say Israel has the right to defend itself and stand idly by as an entire people are displaced and killed because of the actions of just one group. It's crucial to understand that this last month does not exist in isolation. The Palestinian people have no freedom. They exist only at the mercy of the Israeli state. And so we're choosing this moment for PMG to take a clear stance of its own. What's happening in Palestine is wrong. There is no possible justification for it. And we want to share the Palestinian perspective on what that really means. And with that being said, it's time to go over to Timur.
In May of 2021, I released a video titled A Message to the Video Game Industry, in which I talked about the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem. My intention at that time was to raise awareness around the plight of Palestinians, particularly in communities that I knew would rally to defend innocent people, but felt that the situation might be too complicated for them, or that it just wasn't their place to speak up about it. My message at the time was simple. It's not that complicated. Innocent Palestinians are being killed at the hands of a ruthless government that has a complete disregard for their lives and is devoted to robbing them of their rights, displacing them, and killing them. A government that is dedicated to maintaining an apartheid state, while it also ethnically cleanses Palestine. Following the unjust killings of black people at the hands of law enforcement officers, a movement to stand up and speak out against these actions erupted around the world, and it inspired major companies, corporations, streamers, content creators, and others to use their platforms to speak up and raise awareness around the issue. When I asked for these people to speak up for Palestinians for the same reasons, the message was heard, and people did speak up. Sure, it wasn't to the same degree, but that wasn't the point. The point was to dispel the narrative around how complicated the Israel-Palestine issue is, so that good people could do the right thing. And what I saw filled me with hope that things had changed, that people now felt empowered to stand up for Palestine, that they understood the dynamics and the existence that the Palestinians lived in. 2 years later, I'm asking people to break their silences and speak up for Palestinians once again. Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank have been killed in the thousands at the hands of the Israeli government, which is unleashing horrific violence on them, committing war crimes, and doing so with the approval of various governments around the world. This time, however, it's different. It is complicated in some ways. On October 7th, the military arm of Hamas attacked and killed 1,400 innocent Israeli citizens. These actions deserve the most fervent condemnation. The killing of civilians is abhorrent and repugnant. Along with the taking of lives of these innocents, these actions by Hamas have irreparably changed the lives of their friends, family, and their communities by putting upon them a trauma.
I think also it's one of those things where people don't want to have to really lay it all out. If you're like, this is to destroy Hamas, it's like, so it's acceptable to you to have 4,000 kids killed. Those were in service of destroying Hamas.
That can take a lifetime to address, if at all. It is disgusting. The Israeli government's response to this, however, has been to use the events as an opportunity to intensify the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and to do so in the name of self-defense. As I record this video, over 8,000 Palestinians have been killed, with over 3,000 of them being children. By the time you watch it, that number is going to be higher. The majority of these killings have been through bombing of Gaza, which has a population of 2 million people in a very small stretch of land. And some of these bombs have been white phosphorus, the use of which is a war crime. Israel's response amounts to collective punishment, which is also a war crime. It commits these crimes with impunity, knowing that it has the backing and support of America. Israel, along with media around the world, has very effectively dehumanized Palestinians by presenting them all as Hamas. Israel's defense minister outright said that Palestinians were, quote, animals, and this means that all Palestinians get treated as terrorists that have killed innocent people, and anyone who speaks up and supports Palestinians is thus a supporter of Hamas. The voices that spoke up for Palestinians in 2021 have become deafeningly silent again, as thousands are being killed. And the Israeli government is relying on this. The acts of October 7th, though horrific, are unfairly being used to stifle any sort of opposition to the disproportionate killing of innocents as retaliation. Israel has launched marketing campaigns, including adverts on YouTube videos and billboards in major cities that dissuade and discourage the people who developed an understanding of its horrifying actions against Palestinians in the past from seeking out further context around the military actions and its conflict now.
That was such
it does
a
this while
dystopian
escalating
ad.
the violence against Palestinians to unimaginably brutal levels, bombing hospitals, killing journalists, controlling electricity, water and food, cutting off communication, and at the time of recording, bombing a refugee camp.
An unknown number of people are buried under the rubble. They were pulling out children.
Each new atrocity is accompanied with the justification that this is what it needs to do to defend itself from Hamas. But anyone that wants to see the truth can see this is not the case. Children are being killed in their thousands in a widespread ethnic cleansing campaign.
Isn't white phosphorus used to lighten the area? White phosphorus can have numerous uses, but what is uncontested in terms of what the intended use is or not is the effects it can have on humans and human skin.
For a ceasefire being ignored and outright discouraged by politicians around the world. This goes far beyond self-defense. This is the furthering of colonialist
conditions
goals.
from dehydration and hunger.
And yet, when I see people in the video game industry turn a blind eye to what is happening or not use their platform to be vocal about the atrocities being committed against Palestinians, I feel compelled to speak to them, to help them understand a bit more, in the hope that they can once again find the courage to speak up. The extent of the subjugation of the Palestinians has repeatedly been deemed an apartheid state by groups such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. But nothing has changed. These are the conditions that Palestinians have existed under for generations.
It doesn't get worse with water, but water cannot extinguish it. It melts flesh, and gases are severely toxic. First, white phosphorus will suffocate you, then it burns you from the inside out.
With no hope of anything different. I was asked to speak to the industry again by People Make Games, but at this point, I feel powerless. If the pictures, videos, and articles coming out of Gaza, the West Bank, and Palestine aren't enough to spur you into action, my words are surely not going to move the needle.
This young boy says he was stood here when 3 bombs landed, and he helped to move those who did not survive.
But even though there's nothing I can say that I haven't already said to you in my last plea for help, I can at least try and shine a light on the broader context. The horrific actions of October 7th did not happen in a vacuum. Palestinians have been repeatedly killed and displaced for years. And to try and talk about the impact of that, the lived experience of that in the most authentic way possible, I reached out to people with far more knowledge and experience than I have.
As you are all seeing on the social media, what's happening right now in Gaza is basically a genocide. Like the Israeli is attacking everybody, civilians, homes, hospitals, like even schools. Everything is targeted. Even here in the West Bank, I live in the West Bank, I'm not in Gaza. In the past 2 weeks, like there's more than 100 civilian killed here in the West Bank. More than 1,000 person was taken to prison by Israelis. The situation is not, it's very brutal. This conflict is going like a snowball. It's getting bigger and bigger.
The West Bank is obviously completely separate from Gaza, right? Gaza is where Israel is attacking right now, and where a lot of the horror that we're seeing on the news is taking place. But the West Bank is actually a completely separate territory, separate government, separate authority from Gaza. And even though, you know, this has nothing to do with Hamas, the West Bank has for decades been a place where Israel and Israeli settlers or ultranationalists have stolen land, harassed people, attacked people, killed people, captured people, imprisoned people. And that's an ongoing thing. And under the fog of the war in Gaza, we're seeing increased aggression in the West Bank. You know, people getting murdered, ultranationalists just entering the territory and killing, burning land, burning houses, ensuring that people will leave out of fear so that they can claim that land in the West Bank. The other thing, I think, speaking to the cyclical nature of this, is, to me, it's terrifying that for somebody like Rashid, this is how many time you're seeing something like this in your life? Like,
it's never ending.
Right. I saw a story of kids who have learned to write their names on their limbs with Sharpie, not because somebody tells them to, but because they've seen what happens to a body when it gets hit by a bomb in a previous incident. And we're talking about 15-year-old kids who are now at their third invasion of Gaza, which is just staggering, right? That a 15-year-old kid would now be at the third time this is happening in their life and would have learned to write their name on their arm so they can be easily identified if they get hit by an airstrike or a missile, hiding in a school or playing outside or just, trying to exist.
The operation of the apartheid state is clearest in the West Bank, where Palestinians are forced to use specific roads to get around and are treated differently in all aspects of their lives, even in the way the law is applied to them.
It's defined as a land under occupation. For us as Palestinian, we see like all Palestine is a land under occupation. But even in the international law, it's controlled by the military, the Israeli military. So their target actually to make you feel that your life, every aspect of your life is under their control. People maybe in different parts of the world, like when they wake up, they check the weather. When people wake up here in the West Bank, they check the roads, which road they should take. Because like there's checkpoints on every road. There is like a huge expansion of settlements, which is like an illegal entities for settlers. They just came to a random land and they take it, they build their homes, and they start expanding this land, and you cannot do anything. They are protected by the Israeli government itself, and they are also armed. For me, like even
being aware as a kid that you have to write your name on all your limbs, or as a parent and medic having to write it on your babies, yeah, that is absolutely and completely horrifying.
For this conflict, like settlers
this whole thing.
sometimes stone you with rocks when you cross a road that is near them. That was happening like last month with me. Like I was driving late at night, and they were making an ambush between the trees, and when I passed near them, they just thrown rocks, and one of them like hit my car actually. So basically they try to control every aspect of your life. You are not allowed to travel without their permission. You are not allowed even to go from one city to another city without their permission. They keep expanding their settlements. They do brutal attacks every night on Palestinians. They kidnap Palestinians. They kill. It's really very hard and very brutal environment. If this happened to anyone in a different place, like this is crazy. But this is our daily life.
When we talk about the West Bank and Israel, this is a straight implementation of an apartheid situation.
This is excellent. I wanted to like watch a handful of it. I'll share it more and I'll use it at the beginning of the streams. But this was a really good job by People Make Games to kind of not only tell a lot of the aspects of the story, but just to give a massive platform to a whole bunch of people, especially people who are directly involved and related to this in the gaming industry as well. I didn't know they'd be going that far. Like it's really good.
When these ultranationalist settlers attack Palestinians, two Palestinians were recently killed going to a funeral. They were ambushed by settlers. Their car got shot at. The ambulance carrying the person they were burying got shot at. And a father and son were killed in just brutal violence with nowhere to go. Even in the system of justice, very explicitly, a Israeli crime is tried by a civilian court that takes very different rules and considerations and laws into account, and will usually acquit any aggressors, while Palestinians get tried in military court and are effectively jailed or taken away for sometimes years for just a crime of like looking aggressive. There's no real case of equality or fairness or justice in the West Bank. Gaza obviously sees endless more violence, but I think the West Bank is a very clear indicator of what Israeli peace looks like. The peace that exists right now is not a just peace. It is not an equal peace. It is something that would be condemned in the strongest words if it was happening to any country outside of here, but it doesn't, because the Palestinians over years in media, in education, have always been depicted as a threat to Israeli safety and security. And the story of what happens under Israeli peace to the Palestinians has been relatively underreported or completely underreported.
Israel's goal is to seize complete control of Palestine through cleansing and displacement, and this effort has been sustained for 70+ years. The narrowed vision on the events of the last few weeks means that the violence perpetrated against Palestinians feels just as self-defense, but the smokescreen allows the Israeli government to further its colonialist goals.
Every time that peace has been on the table, the increase in settlements or the Israeli refusal to stop.
Oh man, this is really good. Do you support terrorism? No, I definitely am calling out the terrorism of the Israeli government and what they're doing to the innocent civilians of Gaza. And this documentary is fantastic. Really, really, really good. You know, I would share it. People make games. It's very, very, very well done. I need to stand with Israel. I will stand that I'll take a position that Israel needs to stop killing children. There's over 4,000 kids who've been killed already. That's my position. I want that to stop immediately. So yeah, please speak to people in the area and tell them to stop killing kids. It's really horrifying. And it's extra gross that's being done with money from the Canadian government. All right, everybody. I'm going to rate out to Kevin Logan, 1875. If you're in the YouTubes, I won't be able to share it with you, but you can go over to his site. Oh, yes, sorry, I will share this video. Here, there's the linky. Shared. People Make Games did a really good job. It's fucking awesome. Do I think they were actually from Israel? No, we're getting like, okay, so it's one of the, it's both because we're like, I think now that we're simul streaming, there's so many more people to watch. Like we had 800 people at the peak, and that's pretty wild. But having that many people means way more trolls, and all the trolls are just like filtering into the Twitch chat, and people just pop in there like, hi, you have to believe everything I say and platform me right now because I'm in your chat. And I'm always like, okay, I can tell you're probably a troll. If you're not a troll, you're just annoying. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter where you're from. But if you're just dropping in the chat like, pay attention to me now, I want the attention. I want to be on stage. Talk to me. Everybody, I love you all. You're valid. I'm gonna be back tomorrow. Say hi or bye to this adorable little, oh, look at that one's a cute little baby. He's an angel. No harm can come to him. And yeah, thank the mods. The mods keep safe. They're fucking awesome. Mods and all the chats, by the way. You're all incredible. We're gonna be doing more coverage. We got a wild week. I love you all. You're valid.